Welcome back to Anime T23, where we dive into the worlds and what-if scenarios of your favorite anime. Today, we embark on a journey through the hidden feelings and untold moments of the ninja world. Imagine a world where Naruto, our spirited hero, recognizes the deep and unspoken affection of the shy and caring Hinata much earlier than in the original timeline. How would this revelation shape their lives, their battles, and their bonds? How would it influence Naruto's path to becoming Hokage and Hinata's own growth as a kunoichi? Sit tight as we explore the twists and turns of this alternate reality, where hearts are unveiled and destinies are altered. Let's dive in. What if Naruto recognizes Hinata's feelings? Eerie Part 1. I watched as the Leaf Ninjas slowly made their way through the forest. I recognized their leader as Kakashi Hatake, but the rest were a mystery to me, and I didn't want to rush in, even if they had my sister. So, I finally found you, Mai. I should have rescued you from Orochimaru's hideout as soon as I knew he was dead, but that Uchiha bastard got there first. But I can rescue you now, so just hang on, I thought, determined to get my little sister back. I hid among the leaves, easily avoiding the attention of the group, although, with a loud-mouthed blonde arguing with a dog shinobi, it really wasn't that hard. I kept my distance, however, because I recognized that the girl who was with the blonde was a Hyuga. I can't let them get suspicious. If they suspect something is wrong, I'll never be able to fool to be a Kugen. I thought grimly. I had observed them ever since they left the samurai bridge, but I still didn't know anything about them, other than the Hyuga girl. Guess I just need to probe them a little. Get them to use some of their abilities. Then I can take someone hostage and get my back. I was so busy formulating a plan, I didn't even notice the fact that the Hyuga had spotted me. Damn! So much for the element of surprise. Still, as long as they don't hit me with a genjutsu, I should be okay. I stepped out of the tree line, my gray cloak concealing my face from view. All of the Leaf Shinobi dropped into a defensive stance as soon as they spotted me, and Kakashi stepped forward. "Who are you, and why have you been following us?" he questioned, still keeping my sister on his back. He may have suspected that she was the reason I was there, so he kept her close. "I'm here for my sister," I stated calmly, my deep voice carrying clearly in the still forest. "Let me take her, and I won't give you any trouble." "That's not happening," the little pink-haired ninja spoke up. "She has vital intelligence on the Akatsuki, and we dash—" "Wait, what do you mean, sister?" Mai interrupted, a look of disbelief on her face. "I don't have any family. I grew up in an orphanage. Orochimaru was the only person I could ever have called family." "Uff, as if you could call that psycho family." The dog shinobi scoffed, not taking his eyes off me. I shook my head at Mai's words. "You're wrong. Orochimaru never considered anyone as anything more than a disposable tool. I'll tell you everything once I get you away from here," I explained, before disappearing. 00000 normal POV. Everyone gasped as soon as the strange man disappeared, but their surprise was short-lived. Hinata, the only one other than Kakashi to not give in to her surprise, tracked him as he moved at near-light speed. "Sai, watch out!" she cried as the figure appeared behind him. Sai reacted instantly, grabbing his tanto with practiced ease as he turned to face the intruder. However, he was no match for the stranger's speed, and with a series of rapid punches to his nerve clusters, Sai crumpled like a sack of potatoes. The stranger vanished again, appearing before Sakura. She, unlike Sai, was unable to even react, and the Leaf Shinobi's number were reduced once more as she fell under the cloaked man's assault. The group was stunned at the speed and power the stranger displayed. Their numbers were cut by a third, all under 5 seconds. Naruto quickly recovered, and he dashed forward, illness forgotten. His fist came up, and he swung at the stranger with all his might. The fist passed through empty air, and Naruto grunted at the leg that smashed into his stomach. Cloak billowing. The stranger had ducked under Naruto's blow with very little effort, and brought his leg up into his stomach, his legs a perfectly straight line. 1 foot firmly on the ground, the other planted in the blonde shinobi's stomach. Naruto rose several feet as the man jumped above him and punched him in the back, sending him crashing down to create a small crater. The man landed and was quickly forced on the defensive. Hinata and Kiba, with the instinctive teamwork that only members of the same squad could achieve, attacked simultaneously. Kiba and Akamaru, in his man-beast form, tunneled in a whirlwind of claws and fangs towards the attacker, while Hinata moved in from behind, ready to intercept the flying body. The stranger appeared unconcerned, and when the whirlwinds were only inches away, he vanished. Kiba and Akamaru halted their rotation, confused, and were quickly taken out. The stranger, who reappeared between the duo, grabbed both by the leg and swung them into each other. In a show of massive strength, he hurtled both man and dog into a tree, after smashing them together like clapping two giant hands. Hinata stared in awe and fear at the figure in front of her, her Byakugan seeing every movement he made. His speed and strength were incredible, and his chakra appeared to be twice as large as Naruto's own prodigious chakra. She took a half-step backward, fear overriding her senses, as the figure turned to her. She was saved by the timely arrival of Kakashi, who had placed Karen's slash mine into the care of a shadow clone. Kakashi struck the man from behind with his fist, though to little effect. The man had been expecting some sort of attack, and he was prepared. After Kakashi landed his first blow, a kunai ready to stab, the figure disappeared once more, reappearing above Kakashi. Kakashi had whirled around, expecting a repeat of Sai, but was disappointed as a kick to the head sent him flying. Kakashi quickly recovered, flipping to his feet while skidding backwards. The man dashed forward, a kunai of his own appearing in his hand, clashing with the copy ninja. The two exchanged a flurry of blows, neither having the strength, speed, or skill to overcome the other. Realizing this at the same time, both shinobi jumped backwards and upwards, landing on the branches of the trees, a good 30 feet apart. "Why are you doing this?" Kakashi asked, wanting to distract their assailant long enough for his companions to recover. Naruto, Kiba, and Akamaru were already shaking off the man's assault, and Kakashi knew he was going to need them to take down his opponent. He wasn't sure how the man was doing it, but he was teleporting around without any sort of seal, and it unnerved him. "I already told you, Kakashi Ataki, I'm here for the girl," the man stated, gesturing towards Karen. "She is my sister, and I won't leave here without her." A dangerous note crept into the stranger's voice, showing that he meant it. "Again, I have to deny your request," Kakashi said firmly. "She had ties to Orochimaru the Akatsuki and the rogue ninja Sasuke Uchiha. We cannot allow someone with such a past and possible information simply walk away. Surely you can understand this." "I understand it. I just won't allow it," the stranger responded, shaking his head. "She is my sister, and I won't let you take her away from me. I lost her 3 times already. I won't let there be a 4th. Now, either step aside and let me take my little sister, or—" The man disappeared, grabbing Hinata by the throat and lifting her nearly 2 feet above the ground. "I'll kill this girl. Your choice." Kakashi simply glared, weighing the man's words. He sounded serious enough, and Kakashi had no way to tell if he was bluffing. The only one who would be able to was currently dangling in said man's grip. The two shinobi stood in a standoff, neither willing to give ground. Red Sharingan stared into the darkness of the hood, attempting to place the man under a genjutsu, but to no avail. The stalemate was broken as a voice rang out through the trees. "You put Hinata down right now." Naruto screamed, summoning hundreds of shadow clones into existence. They surrounded the man, who appeared to be surprised at the sheer number of clone, and the real one stepped through to face him. "If you don't, I'll kill you right here." Naruto snarled, his eyes a gleaming red. The man, after his initial surprise, stood his ground, tightening high grip on Hinata's neck. "You're not very smart, are you, kid?" he asked, a genuine question in his voice. "By the time you even moved, I could crush this girl's neck. Besides, I just want my sister. Don't you have any family? Someone you would do anything for?" "Yes, I do," Naruto stated firmly, still confident he could save the girl who had come to mean so much to him. "They're all the people you've attacked, and you're holding the most precious one in your hand," he shouted, his temper threatening to boil over. This gave the man pause, and he reached up with his free hand to flick back his hood. They revealed a good-looking man who appeared to be a few years older than Naruto and his friends. He was the same height as Kakashi, meaning he towered over the blonde ninja. He had short, spiky maroon hair, think Kohyuga, along with piercing red eyes. They were only slightly lighter than Naruto's own, without slit pupils. The eyes narrowed, a questioning look in his eyes. "So, what does this girl, Hinata, mean to you, kid?" Naruto balked at the question, not expecting to get drawn into a discussion like this with an enemy. "Well, I guess I really, care about her," Naruto questioned, unsure of his own emotions. The man's eyes widened, knowing what he was attempting to say. "I don't really—" Naruto trailed off. The man smirked, a twinkle appearing in his eyes. Despite the situation he was in, he couldn't help but like the blonde. "So, what, is she your girlfriend, kid? Do you love her?" he asked amusedly. I'm not sure, but I know I like her a lot," Naruto stated, hesitant at first, but gradually sorting out his feelings. "I would do anything to help her, and I will save her from you," he shouted, remembering what he had confronted the man for in the first place. "Well, I guess I can't, in good conscience, kill somebody who is so loved," the man said, no trace of sarcasm in his voice. Naruto, who had been charging forward with his clones, fell and face-planted in surprise. The clones dispelled, and Naruto glared at him suspiciously. The other conscious leaf ninja had been moving into position and froze at his words, sensing a trap. However, the man simply dropped Hinata, who began coughing and wheezing due to her restricted airflow. "Wah! What kind of trick is this?" Kiba shouted, convinced that he was bluffing. "I don't care what you say. I'm taking you down. Let's go, Akamaru," the ninja snarled, receiving an affirmative bark in return. "Kiba, wait. Hinata's still in danger." Kakashi's warning fell on deaf ears as the wild Inuzuka and his partner spun towards their target. Fong over Fong. The man appeared unconcerned, and he ducked under both attacks with ease. As Kiba flew over, he reached out and grabbed one of the rapidly spinning limbs, halting the rotation as if it were nothing. Surprise was etched on Kiba's face as he was pulled back into the man's fist. The blow sent him upward slightly, and straight into the rising kick that followed the punch. The Inuzuka was sent flying into his dog, and both crashed into the base of a tree in a tangle of limbs and fur. After dealing with Kiba, the man turned back to Naruto, who was standing protectively in front of Hinata. He appeared unflustered by the assault, and simply stared into Naruto's eyes, which had reverted to his normal bright blue. "What's your name, kid?" he asked, suspicion in his voice. "My name is Naruto Uzumaki, believe it," Naruto shouted, proud of his identity. "I'm the hero of the Leaf Village, and I'm going to be the next Hokage," he continued, unaware of the effect he had just had on the stranger. The man stared at him, slack-jawed and wide-eyed at the mention of his name. "What?" Naruto asked, confused as he noticed the man's reaction. "You're?" The man babbled, before falling to the ground unconscious. Kakashi stood over him, having snuck up behind and hitting him hard in the head. "Good work, Naruto. Now, this fight took a lot of our time, so we're going to need to set up camp. You and Hinata go look after the others, while I secure our new prisoner," Kakashi commanded, picking up the man who had caused so much trouble. Both of the young shinobi nodded and went off to perform their tasks. Kakashi searched their new prisoner, taking all of his kunai and shuriken, and a bladed whip that he had stashed in the cloak. He tied his arms to the sides of his body and tied his ankles together. By then, all of the others had woken up, and Kakashi assigned Naruto and Hinata to guard him. Before he went to go back to his tent, he looked back at their prisoner. "Who are you?" "00000 strangers, Pilvito man." My head hurts. I woke slowly, careful not to groan at the pain that shot through my skull. I forced my eyes open and found myself staring at Naruto and the Hyuga. Wow, really? I was joking when I asked if they were together, but I guess they really are. The two had their backs to me and were sitting near a fire. There were 3 tents that were set up around the fire. I took all of this in an instant. What really drew my eye was the kiss the 2 shinobi in front of me were sharing. It had no tongue or anything, but it was still deep and passionate. I grinned as a thought crossed my mind. Using my wind chakra, I cut the ropes around my ankles and slowly got to my feet. I grinned even wider as I approached the couple, who were still oblivious to my presence. I came up behind Naruto and slyly whispered in his ear, "Wow, lil' cuz, that looks intense." I grinned as he jerked forward in surprise, then laughed loudly as he hit his girlfriend's forehead, sending them tumbling into the dirt. I continued to laugh as Naruto got up a furious expression on his face. "Mind your own business," he shouted, waving his fists at me. "Besides, you should still be tied up. You're our prisoner." My laughter slowly died as I got control of myself. Naruto simply stood over me pointing at me, while Hinata, yeah, that's her name, sat there blushing and pointing her index fingers together. The other members of their group rustled in their tents, and I thought they would come out, but no one did. That's a little weird, but I need to explain myself before Naruto tries to fight me. "Relax, cuz." I chuckled, standing up. "I'm not going to fight you anymore. We are family, after all." I grinned at him, and the confused look on his face. Hinata figured it out faster than he did, which, from what I've observed of my cousin so far, is no surprise. "Wait, cuz? Are you Naruto's cousin?" she asked in a soft voice. Naruto whipped around at her words, then looked back at me, his jaw hanging open. I chuckled at the look on his face. Man, this kid is ridiculous. He's definitely an Uzumaki. I thought happily. I emitted wind chakra from the chakra points on my arms, and shredded the ropes there as well. "Yep, my name's Rokuro Uzumaki. Good to finally meet you, little cuz. Although, I said thoughtfully, I honestly thought you died as a baby. That's what the report said." I trailed off, unaware of the bomb I had just dropped. But. Naruto stammered, unsure of what to say. Hinata simply put a hand on his shoulder, and I watched it instantly calm him down. Wow, she can curb an Uzumaki's enthusiasm. She must be something special. Naruto took a deep breath before he continued with his earlier thoughts. I asked the pervy sage about my family once. He just said they were all dead. "So, how are you still alive?" Naruto asked suspiciously. I could see he didn't know what to think, but that he really wanted to know. One look at Hinata, and I could tell she wanted the same thing. My face darkened at the thought of explaining the family history, but it also reminded me of why I came. First things first, let's get Mai, or whatever name she goes by, and then I'll tell Dash I began, but was interrupted by a voice from behind. "I don't think so," Kakashi said calmly. "That girl is not going anywhere. If you want to explain yourself, then you're going to do it here." I slowly turned around, hands held out to my sides, and looked into Kakashi's eye. His hand was poised right above my heart, crackling with lightning, ready to strike at any moment. Even with my speed, I knew I wouldn't be able to get out of the way fast enough. "I'm not going anywhere," I delled. "I found the last remaining members of my clan, and I'm going to stick with them. Besides," I said a little sheepishly, "I don't have anywhere to go anyway, so the Hidden Leaf is as good a place as any." Kakashi stared at me for a few moments before turning to Hinata. She had her Byakugan activated, and nodded to Kakashi to indicate that I was telling the truth. He deactivated his jutsu and lowered his hand. still a little wary of me. I flashed him the trademark Uzumaki grin to help ease his fears. Well, now that we got that out of the way, how about we grab my sister, and I'll explain everything, I suggested, and Kakashi merely nodded. As he walked off, I turned to Naruto. Hey, look, I know this must be a lot of information to take in at once, but I promise, I will explain everything. I just want to ask you one question. Naruto nodded dumbly, still a little overwhelmed. Do you want your friends to hear all this too? Or do you just want this to be a family talk? Naruto had a thoughtful look on his face, before turning to Hinata. Hinata, do you want to know about this? I mean, it is family stuff. Naruto trailed off at the look she was giving him. I rolled my eyes as I saw his resistance crumble under her gaze. See, can I, Naruto? I promise I won't tell anyone else about what he says. If you don't want me to, she pleaded softly. Well, okay then, Hinata, Naruto said happily, before turning back to me. WHDSH, I said, making a flicking motion with my wrist. Naruto scowled, and Hinata just poked her finger together, blushing lightly. All right then, anyone else? This isn't exactly sensitive information. I just don't know how much you want your friends to know. No, just us and Kakashi-sensei and your sister. Naruto said, I can't believe it. I actually have a family. Naruto hooped, putting his arms behind his head. All right, slow down there, I said, amused. First I have to explain everything, then see if you're still happy. First off, I want to apologize for attacking you guys. Rokuro shifted uncomfortably, wary of their reaction to his apology. It's fine, Rokuro, Hinata said softly. Really? Are you sure? He asked incredulously. I mean, I did threaten to kill you, so how can you forgive me that easily? Hinata's too nice to hate anyone. Naruto spoke. He liked the man claiming to be his cousin, but the fight was still fresh in his mind. Naruto had decided to learn about his clan's and cousin's past before deciding what he thought. And you did for your sister, so we can forgive you for that. Well, now that that's settled, how about you tell us about your past? Kakashi offered. Right? So, as you all probably know, the Whirlpool Village was destroyed. Rokuro began. Hinata, Naruto, Kakashi, and Karen all listened intently. After retrieving Karen from the tents, the five had gathered around the fire. 16 years ago, we were attacked by an unknown enemy. I don't know why they attacked us. Maybe it was for our Fuinjutsu scrolls, or our weapons, but they did. Wait, what Fuinjutsu scrolls? And what weapons? Karen asked, puzzled. Rokuro shrugged. I know our clan specialized in Fuinjutsu, and we had some kind of special weapons, but that's it. I was only 2 at the time of the attack, and Karen, you were just a baby. I think I can elaborate on that. Kakashi interjected. The Uzumaki clan was renowned for their seals and sealing jutsu. No one in the world was as good at Fuinjutsu, and it's likely that was part of the reason for the attack. Also, the Uzumaki weaponsmithers were famous for their ability to forge a certain metal. This metal, when chakra is channeled into it, can replicate certain effects based on the user's chakra nature. Oh, you mean like Asuma Sensei's knives? Naruto piped up. Yes, Naruto, that's it exactly. This metal is very difficult to shape, and the Uzumaki were very good at using it. In fact, your whip is made of this metal. Isn't it, Rokuro? Kakashi queried. Yes, it is. Rokuro confirmed. Although I had no idea it was so hard to forge this metal, I always thought it was just rare. Well, that's partially why. Kakashi agreed. But it's also very hard to forge, and a lot of smiths try, which means that it is even rarer because they usually can't make anything usable. Hey, can we get back to my brother's story? Karen interrupted. She had been shocked to find out that she had a brother, but she had also been extremely happy. She, like Naruto, had never had a family, so having a brother made her so happy she was bursting with joy. But she wanted to know why she had never seen him before, or met him. Yeah, I should keep going. Rokuro flashed his sister a grin before continuing. So anyway, after the attack, I came out of my hiding place. Mai and I had been put into a small compartment made of a metal that no one can detect chakra through, so we were saved. However, I almost wish we hadn't been. What I saw that day... Rokuro trailed off, tears starting to run down his face. Karen put her hand on his back, whispering in his ear. He looked up a moment later, putting his grin back on, before giving Karen a hug. "Thanks, sis," he said simply, before releasing her. Karen had no idea how to respond, but she felt a warmth at his touch. Anyway, I left the village with Mai. We wandered throughout the country, barely able to feed ourselves. By the time we reached the mainland, we were nearly dead. I knew I couldn't take care of you, so I left you in a village near the village hidden in the grass. He directed the last part towards Karen. I found a family who I thought would take care of you. I'm so sorry I left Mai. I should have stayed, Dash. Don't say that, Karen said fiercely as she pulled her older brother into a hug. I know my childhood wasn't great, and I was alone after that family left, but you're here now. Rokuro slowly returned the hug, shocked that his sister could forgive him so easily. But I left you. I abandoned you because I wasn't strong enough, he said, the guilt still eating at him. No, you didn't. Naruto spoke up. You made sure she would survive, and you came back for her. You were strong enough to give up your sister, in order to make sure she lived. Rokuro looked over at the blonde ninja, surprised at his words. He smiled softly at his reassurance, and broke out of his sister's embrace. Thanks. I've just wondered for so long how you would feel when I told you. I didn't think I would be forgiven so easily. Karen smiled at her older brother, happy that she had made him happy. It's okay, big brother. I know what you did for me, and even though I wish you had stayed with me, I can understand that you couldn't. Karen's eyes narrowed, and she adjusted her glasses as she looked at her brother. One thing, though, don't call me Mai anymore. I chose Karen because I like it, so I want to be called that. Rokuro laughed softly, reaching up to ruffle his sister's hair. Okay, Karen, I guess we can just list Mai as your middle name. Naruto smiled at the interaction between the two, then sat back down next to Hinata. He put an arm around her shoulder and drew her closer to him. Hinata, although she blushed slightly at his forwardness in front of others, snuggled into his chest. Kakashi merely sighed at the displays of affection. Okay, that explains a little, but what did you do after that? I can hardly believe that you got as strong as you are with no training. And Karen, how did you end up with Orochimaru and Sasuke? Well, after I left Karen with that family, I went to the village hidden in the grass. I survived on the streets until I was old enough. Then I enrolled in the academy there, Rokuro continued, slipping into a business mask. I graduated quickly due to my skill with wind chakra. I became a chunin at 8, but by then I was growing tired of the village. I was treated with suspicion because I was an outsider, so I left. I'm technically a rogue ninja, but since I never belonged to the village, they chose not to pursue me. Also, my sensei helped in that regard. Rokuro smiled at the memories of his old teacher before continuing. I left and returned to the village where I had left Karen, only to find it destroyed. I searched the area and saw you leaving with Orochimaru. Karen shifted in her seat, worried at what they thought of her. But to her surprise, Rokuro simply placed an hand on her shoulder and smiled. Naruto grinned, and Hinata smiled as well. Kakashi simply nodded his understanding. You were young and alone. There is no way you could have known what Orochimaru was like, or what he would have you do. Karen smiled in relief, glad that they understood what she had been through as a child. I guess, can we just continue? She said, uncomfortable with the attention. Not really much to say after that. Rokuro shrugged. After I saw you with him, I knew I wouldn't get close to you again, not while Orochimaru was still alive. I kept an eye on you, training myself to become stronger and inventing my own jutsu. I even went back to the ruins of our village and found my whip. But when I heard that the Uchiha had killed Orochimaru, I came to get you as fast as I could. Unfortunately, I couldn't beat him there, and you left with him. I followed you, and the rest. Well, you know the rest. An interesting story, Kakashi mused. But it still doesn't prove that you're an Uzumaki. Kakashi raised his hand as Rokuro went to protest. I don't doubt your intentions, but I can't be certain you're telling the truth. What more do you want? Rokuro asked, frustrated. I have knowledge only an Uzumaki would have, and... Wait, I know what I can do. A grin slowly spread across his features. Naruto's parents. You guys know who they are. If I'm really an Uzumaki, then I'll know who they are, he said proudly. Naruto, your parents are Kushina Uzumaki and Minato Namikaze. Karen and Hinata sat there, dumbstruck at the mention of the fourth Hokage. Naruto looked embarrassed and put his hands behind his head. Kakashi's eye widened at the proclamation, but then nodded as it verified Rokuro's identity. Rokuro just sat proudly, ignorant of the mother of all bombs he had just dropped. After all, he is an Uzumaki. Well, I guess that settles that. Naruto, I'm sorry you had to find out about your parents this way. Kakashi turned towards Naruto, then frowned at the blonde's lack of surprise. Well, you see Kakashi-sensei, I sorta already knew, Naruto said awkwardly, rubbing the back of his head. What? When did you find out? Kakashi asked, amazed at Naruto's prior knowledge. Well, it was when the Nine Tails came out during my fight with Pain. Naruto explained. When I reached the eighth tail, he appeared in my mind and told me everything. Really? Kakashi was stunned. Never before had he heard of anything like this happening. Sensei, even in death, you continue to be the most incredible person I know. Naruto, when were you going to tell me? Hinata asked softly, pushing her index fingers together. Despite her outwardly shy appearance, Naruto could tell that she was disappointed and just a little angry that he hadn't told her about his parentage. Uh-oh, you're in trouble now. Rokuro laughed. Come on, Karen, let's get some sleep. With that, he stood up and grabbed his sister by the hand, leading her away from the couple. Hey, wait. I still have some more questions. Naruto yelled, desperately trying to get out of his situation. Fine. I guess Kakashi-sensei could dash. When Naruto turned to his teacher for some help, he found nothing but air. Oh, come on. Give me a break here. He mumbled under his breath, turning back to the Hyuga. He balked as her earlier appearance was gone, replaced by a dark, hooded look. Hinata. The sun filtered through the branches as it hung low in the sky. The angle it was setting it created a beautiful sunset. Oranges, reds, and yellows all layered together to create a spectacular tapestry in the sky. Two shinobi sat on a hill outside the Leaf Village, happy to be back home. Hinata sighed, shifting into her love's chest as she watched the sunset. Naruto smiled down at her, then chuckled at her face. What's so funny? Hinata asked softly, a smile in her words. You? Naruto responded. Your face looks so cute like that. What are you thinking about that makes you look so cute? Hinata giggled sweetly at his words. Oh, it's nothing really. Come on, tell me. It's, kind of, embarrassing actually. Hinata blushed. Oh, really? Naruto asked. More embarrassing than having everyone think you're in a relationship with your sensei. Flashback. Kakashi looked down at the bells, stunned at his student's words. Naruto simply grinned at him, happy he had brought back his teacher. Kakashi looked at the grin and saw his old friend Obito reflected in the brilliant white smile. You know, Kakashi said, the familiar eye smile on his face, you're a lot like him. Naruto balked at the grin. What's that? He asked worriedly. Why are you grinning like that? You're really weirding me out. Naruto was creeped out by the look on his teacher's face and his previous statement. What? Kakashi was confused by his student's reaction. I am shocked, Hinata said softly as the Konoha 11 gathered around the two. She blushed heavily at the thoughts that she was sharing with nearly everyone else. I knew you two were close, but still. Sakura punctuated her statement with a heavy sigh, unsurprised by her reaction. Sometimes, after sharing a very intense situation, it says here that love can blossom. Sai explained, his nose buried in his latest social guidebook. But it says nothing about men. Oh, come on. You gotta be kidding. Shikamura drawled, his genius intellect already sensing what everyone else was thinking. What? Kakashi asked, surprised at their interpretation. No, that isn't what I meant, Dash, Guy-sensei told me. Rockley interrupted. That is simply another part of youth. I always suspected something like that was going on. Tenten said disinterestedly. What, Dash? Naruto's mouth hung open slightly, his mind still trying to accept what they were suggesting. He finally figured it out, turning to look at the silver-haired Jonin, who simply smiled sheepishly at him. Oh, come on. Give me a break here. Naruto screamed in horror. Naruto ran up the side of the outcrop. They were all standing on before jumping off the cliff. Kakashi tried to grab his shoulder, but to no avail. Naruto, wait. Come back. Kakashi shouted. It's just a misunderstanding. Nu Omicron, Omicron, Omicron. Naruto shouted back. Naruto, please. Kakashi pleaded. No. Naruto shouted back again, moving farther away. End flashback. That's not fair, Naruto. Hinata pouted. Everyone else thought so too. Naruto chuckled. Yeah, but not everyone else loved me. Besides, I've said I'm not into that stuff before. Okay. Hinata gave up. I promise I won't ever think you're gay again. Why? Naruto tried sounding indignant, but couldn't laughing at her words. The couple shared a laugh for a few moments, before staring deeply into each other's eyes. Bright blue pierced into soft lavender, and they simply looked into the other's soul before sharing a deep kiss. 00000. It had been nearly a week since they had returned from their unofficial mission, and a lot had happened, not the least of which had been Naruto and Hinata's first fight. Flashback Naruto frantically waved his arms, unintelligible noises coming out of his mouth as he tried to get someone to support him. He felt his blood run cold at the voice behind him, and he realized it was too late. Naruto, when were you going to tell me? Hinata said quietly, and all the more dangerous because of it. Naruto slowly rotated to look at her, then balked at the glare she was giving him. Sure, she was nice and sweet on the outside, but she had the eyes of a demon. I swear I was going to tell you, Hinata. Naruto waved his arms in front of him rapidly, hoping to stave off a physical assault. I just needed to find the right time, And I kind of just found out about it myself, Dash, Naruto. It's been nearly a month. Yeah, but I just didn't know what to think. Plus, we had to rebuild the village, and then the kill order came out, and then please don't hit me. This last attempt at appeasement was made as Hinata got up and slowly walked towards Naruto. He put his head under his hands, anticipating physical retribution for his lies, but was surprised when she gently ran her hands through his hair. I could never hit you, Naruto. Hinata hummed softly, her fingers gently digging into his blonde hair. But please, don't lie to me again or keep things secret. Okay. Naruto immediately relaxed, and guilt made his chest tight. He had lied to her when she had asked him about his parents once, while eating at Ichiraku's, and the guilt he felt for lying to her was enormous. He wrapped his arms around her waist, standing up and pulling her closer to him. I promise you, Hinata, I won't ever keep a secret from you again. Pale lavender met bright blue, and they shared a small kiss in the dying light of the fire. End flashback after that night. The group had resumed their journey towards the Leaf Village. When asked, Sai, Sakura, and Kiba had all been adamant they hadn't heard anything out of the ordinary last night. Naruto was extremely confused, as he knew how loud he had been. But when Kakashi saw the look on his face, he merely winked at him. With the mystery of the uninterrupted sleep solved, the ones who hadn't been present at the discussion last night turned their attention to Rokuro and Karen. After giving a brief summary of their histories, the three then questioned why they were allowed to walk freely. Rokuro simply laughed and shook his head, before walking forward to speak with Naruto. The last three Uzumaki shared with each other, most of the sharing being done by Naruto. He told them of his exploits, puffing out his chest proudly after listing off his accomplishments. The others simply ignored Naruto's boasting, but Hinata seemed to hang on his every word. However, even Rokuro was impressed as he described his battle with Pain. Their fun was cut short as they arrived at the gates to the Leaf Village, where several AMBU members were awaiting their arrival. They took Rokuro and Karen into custody, stating that they were dangerous criminals. Naruto protested and was on the verge of coming to blows with the lead AMBU before Kakashi stepped in. The Jonin managed to calm his student down, explaining that they would get a trial after being questioned. Kakashi stated they would get off lightly, due to the fact that they were willing to cooperate and that they had several people willing to vouch for them. Naruto wanted to argue more, believing that it wasn't fair for them to be treated in the manner they were, but he was reassured by Rokuro. The eldest Uzumaki told his younger cousin that they would be out in no time, and that he should spend time worrying about Sasuke and your little Hyuga girl. He winked at the blonde and his girlfriend's light blush, before going with the AMBU to the interrogation department with Karen in tow. 00000 back in the present. Naruto sighed at the thought of his new family. He had just gotten to know them and was starting to like them when they were taken away. Hinata, noticing his change in mood, became concerned. Naruto, what's wrong? It's just, never mind, it's nothing. Hinata pulled herself out of his embrace, turning to look at him with a stern glare. Naruto, you said you wouldn't keep secrets. You promised. She pouted. Naruto grinned at her. Despite the fact that he was being scolded, he couldn't help but marvel at how far Hinata's confidence had come. When it came to talking with him alone, the Hyuga had become completely comfortable with most topics. Excluding anything sexual or to do with marriage, the heiress revealed a confidence that no one but Naruto would ever see. All right, Hinata, I'll talk about it. At his words, Hinata smiled happily before settling back into their previous position. It's just, I finally find family, people besides you I can love, and they get taken away from me. It just doesn't seem fair. Naruto was brought out of his musings when Hinata stiffened in his arms, wondering if she had heard correctly. He had just said people besides her he could love. Her heart fluttered as her breathing became labored, and she turned a bright red. Naruto looked down, saw her blush, and became puzzled by her reaction. Hey, Hinata, what is it? What did I say? Why you said that today were people be besides me that why you sikarailo? Hinata stuttered timidly, unable to say the final word. Naruto, realization dawning on him, smiled at her reaction. Oh, I get it, he said, clueless. I've never said it before, have I? Hinata, I may be dense, but even I can realize my feelings for you. Naruto's hand caressed her cheek, and the other softly ran through her hair. For so long, you've been there for me. Every time I needed cheering up, you were there. All the times I thought I was alone, you were watching me from the shadows. You've always been by my side, and I promise I'll be by your side too. You've always been so kind to me when no one else had. No matter how much I ignored you, you were still nice to me and wanted the best for me. Now, I want to do the same for you. Naruto leaned in close, putting his mouth right to her ear before whispering softly, I love you, Hinata Hyuga. Tears that had been threatening to fall rushed down her face, and she flung her arms around him, burying her face in his shoulder. Hey, Hinata, what's wrong? Naruto asked, wondering if he had said the wrong thing. She pulled her head back, the flow of tears stopping as their eyes met. Hinata leaned in and kissed him, more passionately than they ever had before. Naruto, initially concerned by the tears on her face, simply responded to the kiss, his mind hazing over in their passion. Hinata's tongue reached out, sliding across Naruto's lower lip. He was shocked that she had taken such a bold step, but opened his mouth after she repeated the action. Their tongues explored one another's mouths, each fighting for dominance. Hinata was aggressive, completely out of character, and her tongue gained the upper hand more than once. Naruto's was larger and stronger, so most of the time he was the dominant one. The urge to breathe overcame their passion eventually, and they broke apart. Both panted heavily as they leaned their foreheads together, trying to catch their breath. Naruto recovered first, and he only had one thing to say. Wow. Hinata just, wow. Words failed him as he gazed at the girl in his arms, and felt warmth spread through his chest. He finally figured out that he loved her, because now he had a family to love too. Hinata recovered, and blushed heavily when she met his gaze. I'm sorry, Naruto. I didn't mean to dash. Hinata was cut off as Naruto kissed her again. It wasn't as long as earlier, but it was just as deep. They broke apart, and both smiled as they touched foreheads. I love you, Hinata. I love you too, Naruto. And I think you two should get a room. Both of them immediately turned red at the sound. And slowly Naruto rotated to seek out the source of the voice as Hinata hid behind him. Both of their blushes dissipated instantly as they saw Rokuro standing behind them, a shit-eating grin on his face. Sorry, am I interrupting something? Rokuro, I thought you in jail and were being interrogated, and that you had to be put on trial, and Naruto babbled, before being silenced by his cousin's hand. Yeah, I know, but since I technically didn't do anything wrong, since you guys left out the part where I attacked you, I don't need to stand trial. I'll be watched by the AMBU for a bit, but otherwise I'm a free man. Rokuro interrupted, calming his cousin. He had been released an hour ago, after the head of the AMBU had given up trying to decide what to do with him. He had bought new clothes, which consisted of a black jacket similar to Naruto's, with white stripes running from the collar down his shoulders, then to the ends of his sleeves. Underneath he had a white shirt with the Uzumaki crest on it, visible since he left his jacket unzipped. He had gray pants on that went down to his ankles, where they were tucked into his sandals. After changing, Rokuro had asked around to see where Naruto had gone. Sakura had obliged, telling him the location of Naruto and Hinata's usual spot. He had crept up on the two while listening in on their conversation, choosing the right moment to cause maximum embarrassment. Both of the younger shinobi offered him their congratulations as he rubbed the back of his head. He smiled at Naruto's enthusiasm, as the blonde was bursting with excitement over having a family member. So, what do you want to do? Naruto asked excitedly. Well, I have to find some place to stay first, but I'll catch up with you once I do, Rokuro offered, noticing Hinata's look of disappointment. She wanted to spend more time alone with Naruto. Okay, meet me later, added Chirukas. You're gonna love it. Naruto exclaimed happily. I'm sure. Now be a good boyfriend, and give Hinata some attention, knucklehead. Rokuro winked at Hinata before walking away, hands in his pockets. Hey! Naruto shouted at the retreating form, his blush returning full force. Behind him, Hinata poked her fingers together nervously as she turned a shade of red that would make Lobster jealous. Naruto huffed as he heard laughter from his cousin, but turned back to Hinata anyway. Well, I guess giving you more attention is a good idea. Naruto smirked, noticing her coloration. He always thought she looked cute when she blushed, and now was no exception. He leaned forward, and their lips met. Sparks seemed to fly from the contact, and the two loved every moment of it. They held each other and kissed as the sun set, the brilliant oranges fading into the darkness of night. Naruto, Hinata whispered as they broke their kiss for the umpteenth time. It's getting kind of dark. I think I should head back, Hinata said gently. Huh. Oh, wow, it's late, Naruto said obliviously, noticing the darkness for the first time. Come on, Hinata, I'd better get you home. He grabbed her hand, dragging her behind him as he made his way towards the village. And no, I'm fine, Hinata said timidly, as she struggled to keep her feet. "Why you don't have to walk me home?" she said nervously. Thoughts of her father and cousin's protective nature made her very nervous. She hadn't told either of them about dating Naruto, and while Niji would most likely be fine with it, she was unsure about her father. "It's fine, Hinata," Naruto said as he led the way into the Leaf Village. Nearly half of the reconstruction was complete, and in only a month. The villagers and workers sent from allied nations had been working hard, and it showed. "Besides, I never get to walk you home. A girl shouldn't be out in the dark. Not that you're not strong or anything," he explained frantically. "It's just, well, I want to, protect you, I guess." Hinata giggled sweetly and leaned her head on his shoulder, thoughts of her family momentarily forgotten. "That's very sweet, Naruto. And thank you." Naruto smiled, then kissed Hinata on the top of the head. The two walked in silence, both content to simply be together. They slowly approached the Hyuga compound, neither of them willing to move any faster. The compound gradually came into sight, and Naruto couldn't help but be surprised at its size. As the largest clan in the Leaf Village, the Hyuga's power and influence showed. The complex was one of the first things to be rebuilt, and it was even more impressive than before. The buildings were styled after the older architecture, but had the modern security and luxuries built in. The main building soared above the others, approximately 6 stories tall, and seemed to disappear into the night. Hinata merely sighed at the sight of her home. While she loved her family, her humble nature made her somewhat uncomfortable with the size and luxury of her house. She tugged at Naruto's hand, jerking him out of his admiration, and walked towards the main gate. "Well, good night, Naruto," Hinata said quickly, letting go of his hand. She didn't want anyone to see them together out of fear. Her father was very strict, and he had become overprotective of his daughters after her performance in the Chunin exams. She feared that he would make her leave Naruto, and that terrified her. She finally had him, and he loved her, and she never wanted to lose him ever. "Wait, Hinata," Naruto cried out, snagging her wrist. Hinata's hands tangled themselves in his blonde spikes, and she turned her head, deepening the kiss. They were so absorbed in each other that they failed to notice the presence that appeared behind them. Ahem. Hayashi Hyuga cleared his throat loudly. "What exactly is going on here, Hinata?" "Father," Hinata shouted in surprise. She moved away from Naruto, face turning scarlet at the position they had been caught in. Naruto and I were. So I see." Hayashi said. "Tell me, how long has this been going on?" Well, Hinata tried to explain herself to her father. She wanted to tell him that she loved Naruto, that he was her boyfriend, that he made her happy. But the years before the Chunin exams haunted her. Hayashi had cared nothing for his eldest, not even caring if she lived or died. She had been too soft and had no self-confidence, so Hayashi had focused solely on his youngest, Hanabi. Hinata had been hurt by her father's lack of care and ridicule. And even though he had done a complete of 180 in the past 3 years, she was still timid and withdrawn around him. Naruto watched the exchange silently, his anger towards Hayashi growing. Hinata had told him all about her father, and Naruto had no respect for the man. Someone who treated his daughter like he didn't deserve to be a parent in his eyes. However, Hayashi was still Hinata's father, and he didn't want to cause any more tension between the two, not when she told him that it was getting better. He put his hand on Hinata's shoulder, then gave her a reassuring smile when she looked back at him. Hinata took a deep breath, steadying herself for what she was about to say. "Father, Naruto and I are dating." Hinata closed her eyes, preparing for the worst. When nothing came, she opened her eyes and looked at her father, curious. Hayashi simply looked back and forth between Hinata and Naruto, as if he was comparing the two. "I see," the clan head said slowly. "So, you two are dating?" Both of them nodded, one timid and the other defiant. "Then I must ask you, young Naruto, what are your intentions with my daughter?" Naruto started, not expecting that kind of question. He had been prepared to argue with Hayashi, but the head Hyuga seemed calm at the news that his daughter was dating him. After all, he was a Jinchuriki, and he had assumed that Hayashi would scorn him like most others. After he recovered from the initial shock, he declared his intentions loudly. "I love Hinata, and I'm going to be with her no matter what." "So you can dash," Naruto prepared to argue with Hayashi, but was silenced by one of the man's hands. "Very well," he said flatly. "And Hinata, do you return these feelings?" Hinata was baffled by her father's seeming acceptance of Naruto, considering how members of her clan had treated him in his youth. She gathered her confidence before echoing the statement. "I do, father. I love Naruto," she said confidently, her pale lavender eyes staring into his pure white ones. "Then you have my blessing to continue dating," Hayashi said approvingly, a small smile cracking his normally stoic face. "But I will need to speak to Naruto alone sometime. Now, come along, Hinata. We have a clan meeting in an hour," he said, gesturing for his daughter to follow him into the compound. The two teenage shinobi merely stared at his receding form. They had expected a fight for the right to see one another, but he had accepted them with very little argument. Hinata and Naruto locked eyes, and both of them grinned broadly as they realized they didn't need to hide from her family anymore. With a quick kiss on the cheek, Hinata bid Naruto good night before running after her father. The blonde stood in compound's open gate, holding his cheek while grinning. Everything was falling into place for him. Sure, Sasuke was still gone, but he had two things that he had craved since he was young. Someone who understood and loved him, and whom he could love back, and a new family to spend time with. He put his hands in his pockets before walking away, whistling softly as he made his way back to his apartment. 00000, I can't believe this, a man said in disbelief. He and his son had watched the exchange from one of the Hyuga's guest rooms. "We come here with a generous marriage proposal, and then Hayashi simply approves of the heiress's relationship with a nobody," he said furiously. "I'm upset too, father," the young man next to him said. "I had hoped to have the heiress hand in marriage. She is quite face. Well, I guess we will have to kill the boy then, won't we? Attractive after all, but this seems not to be the case." A devilish grin slowly spread across his, "that we shall, son." The man whispered quietly, "Then nothing will stand in our way. We will be able to control the Hyuga clan, and she shall have a beautiful wife." The two laughed maniacally, convinced their plan was foolproof. How little they knew. Naruto was broken out of his dreams by a loud pounding noise. His sleep-befuddled mind was still stuck in the land of dreams. Based on the attention his special muscle was crying out for, the dreams had been of a very specific nature. Naruto turned scarlet as he recalled what he had dreamed about, a certain Hyuga being involved. He hurriedly threw on his clothes as the pounding continued. "Hey, Naruto, wake up," Rokuro called. "We've got some training to do, remembers?" Naruto's face lit up at the words, his previous thoughts forgotten. He rapidly brushed his teeth, then flew down the hall towards the door. A grin appeared on his face as he opened the door to his apartment to reveal a slightly impatient Uzumaki. "Come on, goofball," Rokuro said with a tinge of amusement. "I told you last night to be ready by 8, but I'm guessing you forgot." Naruto laughed and rubbed the back of his head as he followed his cousin, trying to recall what he had been told last night. After Naruto's encounter with Hayashi, he had dashed over to Ichiraku to meet Rokuro. There, they talked over several bowls of ramen, each animatedly describing their own techniques. When Rokuro mentioned wind chakra and an Uzumaki special taijutsu, Naruto had begged him to train him. Rokuro had agreed wholeheartedly and told the young blonde to be ready for training at 8. Naruto had agreed readily, but had forgotten the words almost as soon as they had been spoken, too excited about the prospect of learning new jutsu. The two made their way towards the training grounds, the younger pestering the elder about the techniques he was going to learn. "Come on, what kind of jutsu are you going to teach me?" Naruto was bursting with excitement, bouncing along to help curb his excitement. "Well, first I'm going to teach you about wind chakra," Rokuro explained. You did say that was your chakra nature, right? Yep, Naruto declared proudly. Very few shinobi had wind chakra, and he was happy to be a part of that select few. Well, you are an Uzumaki after all. Rokuro mused. Our clan was known for having a large amount of wind users, which is why we were so good at using it. Over time, we developed many techniques specifically for wind chakra, and while I was too young to learn them before our clan was destroyed, I found a scroll detailing several techniques for me to use. Naruto was so absorbed in the story, he didn't realize that they had arrived at a training ground. They stood at the edge of a large clearing with a small creek running through the opposite side. Looking over his shoulder, Naruto was surprised to see how far they were from the Leaf Village. "Hey, Rokuro," Naruto asked, "why did we go so far away instead of going to one of the closer training grounds?" "Two reasons. One, I talked to your old teacher Kakashi last night, and he told me your chakra control isn't the best." Naruto pouted at his words, but conceded the point. Wind chakra is usually very sharp, and only through intense training can you use it for anything other than slashing attacks. Wait, I thought that was the whole reason for using wind chakra? Asuma-sensei told me that wind chakra was like two forces grinding a blade to make it sharp. That's correct, Rokuro said. But there are other ways to use it, and without fine-tuned chakra control, it's nearly impossible. So some of the jutsu I'm going to show you may fire a bit wildly at first. But don't worry, I'll be helping you with that. Okay, and what's the second reason? The second reason is that some of the techniques are my own unique jutsu, so I don't want anyone else to see them. Speaking of which, Rokuro drew a kunai, and with a flick of his wrist, sent it flying towards a tree they had just passed. A small squeak emanated from behind the tree, and Hinata Hyuga jumped out from behind her hiding place. The kunai had been infused with wind chakra, and had gone clean through the tree, right above her head. She turned scarlet as she realized it had been caught, and she pushed her fingers together nervously. "Hinata!" Naruto's flashed his usual grin before running over to her. He skidded to a stop right in front of her, giving her a bone-crushing hug. "Good morning," he said happily, kissing her on the lips. "Naruto," she said warmly, any embarrassment forgotten. She pulled him back down into the kiss, her tongue seeking entrance to his mouth. Shivers ran down both of their spines as their tongues clashed. Both their eyes widened to the size of saucers at a soft cough. "While that is adorable, I have to ask, what are you doing here, Hinata?" Rokuro asked sternly. He liked the Hyuga girl, and thought they were a great match for each other, but he was slightly annoyed at the interruption. Hinata and Naruto leapt out of each other's arms as if they had the plague, both blushing furiously. IW was Jay just thinking, did it? Maybell cowled train with Thea. Hinata babbled out, trying not to lose her nerve. Naruto looked at her, not comprehending what she had just said, while a smirk appeared on Rokuro's face. "Well, Hinata, I'm not sure what I could train you in. You don't have wind chakra, do you?" "Well, I just wanted T to ask if you could help end my stamina." She became slightly less nervous after asking, but she still poked her index fingers together nervously. Rokuro grinned suggestively at what she was asking. "Oh," he asked mischievously. "If you're worried about that, I'm sure Naruto can help you there. Besides, wouldn't you want that with him, rather than me?" He waggled his eyebrows, and Hinata turned scarlet at the implication. "And then, she shouted, the sound oddly soft, while still being quite loud. "That's and not W what I am meant." Naruto's face turned crimson as he reached the same conclusion, and Rokuro couldn't hold back any more. He burst out into hysterical laughter, holding his sides as tears of mirth appeared in his eyes. He fell over as Naruto shouted angrily at him, rolling on the ground. "Sorry, your reactions are just too funny," Rokuro apologized, standing up and brushing himself off. "But seriously, why do you want me to train you?" Hinata felt some of the confidence she only felt when Naruto was around with Rokuro as well. Well, And Naruto has the most chakra of anyone in the Leaf Village, but you have even more than he does. They were fairly similar, so it was only natural that she felt that way. Well, you're right about that, Hina. Rokuro grinned cheekily. Even for an Uzumaki, my chakra is huge. How did you know, though? I saw it when WEF fought you. Hinata recalled when she had activated her Byakugan, remembering how massive his chakra supply had been. It had terrified her when she had seen how large it was, and how effortlessly he had taken out her companions. She still felt guilty about not taking action and being captured by him. Rokuro saw the guilt on her face, and he quickly guessed what she was thinking. Cluelessness was not a trait of the Uzumaki, just Naruto. So, you want to make up for the fact that you froze during the fight, is that it? He asked softly. Hinata nodded, not trusting her voice. Naruto, who had been watching the exchange with interest, stepped forward and embraced Hinata. Hinata, it's okay. He reassured her. You don't need to make up for it. Besides, it all worked out in the end, right? He asked hopefully, wanting her to be happy. Hinata looked up slowly, and while his words had helped, she still felt guilty. The remainder of her guilt was washed away as Rokuro stepped forward and put his hand on her shoulder. Look, Hinata, I fought a lot of people, and very few of them knew the full extent of my chakra. The ones who did ran away screaming like little girls. He smiled gently at her, feeling oddly protective of her. It was like the way he felt towards Karen, a kind of brotherly concern for her well-being. So, if it helps, I'll train your stamina. Hinata smiled softly at the reassurances from her boyfriend and his cousin. There was something about the Uzumaki men that filled her with confidence, although most of it came from Naruto. Right then, Rokuro stepped back and clapped his hands together. Hinata, Naruto, I want you to do laps around this clearing with these packs on, he stated, summoning 2 medium-sized packs. He tossed one each of them, and they both got knocked off their feet by the massive weight. Naruto simply grunted and put the pack on, while Hinata struggled to simply sit up. Naruto, seeing her struggle, went to help her up but was halted by Rokuro's arm. The redhead simply looked at him, then shook his head. He knew that Hinata didn't need the help, nor did she want it. Rokuro sent Naruto off on his laps, and with a glance over his shoulder, the blonde started out. Hinata managed to throw off the pack and get to her feet, then she reached down to lift it. After much struggling, she finally managed to place it on her back, then began to shuffle forward slowly under the massive weight. By the time she made it around the field once, Naruto was already on his 20th lap. Rokuro halted Naruto after he finished the lap, nodding approvingly. With a sigh of relief, Naruto dropped the pack, cracking the earth as it landed. Rokuro grinned before he started on the next phase. Okay, he said, loudly enough for Hinata to hear. Hinata, I want you to continue until you hit 20. She merely grunted in response, all of her focus on putting one foot in front of the other. Now, Naruto put on smirk. Naruto groaned and strapped them onto his arms and legs, staggered by the weight. These weights, Rokuro held out a pair of ankle and wrist weights, offering them up with an evil Rokuro. How am I supposed to spar with you with these on? He whined. His cousin simply laughed, throwing his black jacket off and strapping on his own larger weights. Simple. You're not going to, Rokuro said matter-of-factly. I'm going to show you the Uzumaki signature taijutsu. We have our own taijutsu? Naruto nearly squealed in delight. All right, is it powerful? Does it look cool? Oh, trust me, it's cool. Now, your girlfriend's a Hyuga, so I'm assuming you know about the Gentle Fist, correct? Rokuro questioned. When Naruto nodded, he continued his explanation. Well, our style runs on a similar principle. In the nervous system, there are clusters of nerves that control the muscles in a certain area. With enough precision, you can hit these areas and effectively shut down the person's muscles. However, Rokuro went on, our style isn't nearly as deadly, and someone with expert chakra control can use their chakra to negate the effects. Also, the Hyuga's gentle fist has a rigid form and is quite predictable. Our style isn't nearly as easy to counter. Awesome! Naruto exclaimed, in awe of the new information. So, I can use my unpredictability in this style, believe it, he shouted enthusiastically. Slow down there. I haven't gotten to the best part yet, Rokuro smirked, pulling out a scroll and summoning a training dummy that was in the shape of a human. There were dozens of black dots that stood out against the white canvas, seemingly spread out at random. This dummy has all of the nerve clusters in the human body marked on it. We are going to work on your form while getting you to memorize each and every single nerve cluster. Naruto groaned at the new information. Memorization had never been his strong suit. In fact, he was legendary in the village for his poor memory, so this training was going to be tough. But Naruto stepped up to the dummy anyway, determined to learn this new form. It was from his family after all. Rokuro dropped into a stance, feet slightly wider than shoulder width, knees bent at a 90-degree angle. His right hand was curled into a fist, and his arm was bent, placing the fist level with his shoulder. His left arm was extended outward, bent slightly, while his palm faced the dummy. Now! This stance is a foundation of our taijutsu. 00002 exhausted shinobi walked slowly through the forest, each supporting the other as they made their way back to the Leaf Village. Naruto and Hinata were both at the limits of their endurance, though Hinata was slightly better off. She had just barely managed to finish the 20 laps, and her legs and back felt like they were on fire. Naruto was even worse, having practiced his new taijutsu all day. The weights he had worn were nearly as heavy as Lee's, and they made it difficult to attack, and even a quarter of the speed he normally did. This physical strain, along with the mental work of all the new forms and memorization, had exhausted the blonde faster than anticipated. Rokuro trailed behind them, observing the two as he evaluated their performance. Hinata had struggled with the weight, but every time she faltered, Naruto had called out to her. Hearing his voice had reinforced her determination, and she had struggled onward. Naruto, for his part, picked up the forms quicker than Rokuro had thought, but when he had asked Naruto to point out the nerve clusters on his body, he had only been able to find a quarter of them. All in all, a good first day of training. Rokuro mused out loud. The pair in front of him didn't even acknowledge the praise, too tired to even smile. Now, I want you two to rest tonight, because we're going to be back at it same time tomorrow, he informed them. This elicited a groan from both. The same thing again? I didn't know if they could handle it. Oh, quit your whining. Rokuro snapped at them. You want to get better? Then you'll show up tomorrow. His gaze softened as Naruto stumbled, Hinata's arm around his waist the only thing keeping him up. With a sigh, Rokuro slung his pack off of one shoulder, before rummaging through it for a moment. Here, he said, shoving a small container into Naruto's hand. The blonde ninja looked at him blankly, and Rokuro sighed. It's a special oil, the eldest Uzumaki explained slowly. Use it on each other, and in the morning you'll feel right as rain. They nodded dumbly and continued up the road to the village. As they passed through the gates, the redhead turned his attention to the two of them. All right, you two, go back to Naruto's apartment and use that stuff on each other, he said. I'll meet you at the same training ground tomorrow. With a wave, he started to walk away, but was stopped by Naruto's voice. What do you mean, use it on each other? He asked incredulously. Are you saying that Hinata and I have to? Naruto was unable to continue though, his face beginning to turn red. Give each other a massage. Yes, Rokuro confirmed. Is that a problem? He asked, a dangerous tone coming into his voice. Well, it's just, kind of. Naruto couldn't form a complete thought, and Hinata blushed just as deeply as he did when she heard what they needed to do. If you can't do it, I won't be able to train you tomorrow, Rokuro warned. Neither of you will be able to move in the morning if you don't use that oil. Trust me, I know from experience. Well, it's just... Naruto began, scratching the back of his head, not meeting his cousin's gaze. Just what? Rokuro prompted. Do you not like touching Hinata? He teased. Hinata turned a darker shade of red than anyone thought possible, and she began to sway on her feet. Meanwhile, Naruto was throwing a hissy fit. That's none of your business, he shouted, waving his arms frantically. Besides, I like touching Hinata's. Naruto's hand flew up to his mouth, but the words were already out. Rokuro was bent over laughing, and for some reason Hinata's blush completely receded. Naruto looked at Hinata, worried that she would be angry with him. Ah, that's not what it sounded like. I don't want to touch you in that way. Her lavender eyes met his blue ones, and he frantically amended his statement. No, that's not what I meant either. I mean, he trailed off, not sure what to say. Okay, I get it. You're both a little body conscious. Rokuro said, Look, I can do this professionally for both of you, unless you can get over your shyness. Well, Naruto thought hard on the subject, before being interrupted by Hinata's soft, confident voice. We can do it, Naruto, she said quietly, grasping his hand. Both Uzumaki stared at her in surprise, before she began to lead Naruto away by the hand. Come on, let's go to your apartment, she insisted. Naruto merely nodded dumbly, automatically following her lead. Rokuro just stared as the couple walked away, astonished at the shy girl's confidence. Shaking his head in wonder, the eldest Uzumaki simply pivoted on his heel and headed back to his own apartment. He had to wash up because Naruto and Hinata weren't the only ones with a date that night. 00002 figures watched from the shadows as Hinata and Naruto made their way towards the latter's apartment complex. They had observed the two since last night, excluding their training session, and a plan formed in the younger's mind. All right, father. Tomorrow, when they come back from their training session, we will put our plan into motion, the young man said. Are you sure? The older man asked. From what I've heard of this Naruto character, he would be a formidable opponent. There are other women who I can dash. The elder was cut off abruptly as his son stamped his foot. No, father, he hissed, anger inside of him boiling over. I want Hinata Hyuga. No other woman will do. He calmed himself, before relaying the information he had gathered to his father. I know she is in love with this boy, and that she will never accept an arranged marriage, so I have come up with a plan to make her mine. Here is what we are going to do. He began whispering in his father's ear. I'm proud of you, son. The man slapped his son on the back. What a devious plan. Just what I would expect from the heir to the Minamoto clan. Yes, father. Shirowaka Minamoto smiled evilly. We will have her, and I will be married to her within the year. And the union between our clans will make us the wealthiest and most powerful clan in the Land of Fire. His father, Sanjo Minamoto, stated greedily. The two men simply reveled in their own triumph before moving off into the darkening streets, intent on preparing for the execution of their plan. Oblivious of the plan being formulated nearby, the young couple mounted the steps to Naruto's apartment. Hinata still had her grip on Naruto's hand, although she was no longer leading the way. Composed and calm on the outside, she was a nervous wreck on the inside. Her heart was beating incredibly fast, and she could barely form a coherent thought. She regretted her actions earlier, but it was too late to turn back. The pair reached Naruto's door, and the owner fished his keys out and unlocked the door. Both shinobi made their way inside, and after taking off their sandals, they sat down in the small kitchen. The silence between them grew awkward, as neither of them knew what to say or do. Finally, Naruto broke the silence. Hinata, he began, unsure how to proceed. Her eyes gradually drifted up from the floor and met his, and her determination came surging back. You don't have to do this, he said softly. No, I want to, she shouted with conviction, despite her cherry coloration. And Rokuro-sensei said that we wouldn't be able to train tomorrow if we didn't, Hinata trailed off, hopeful that he would accept. Well, if you're sure. Naruto scratched the back of his head, still unsure. I wanted to, but I don't want to pressure you, dash. Hinata cut off his words with a gentle kiss, and after getting over his shock at her bold move, Naruto returned it. They simply stood in the kitchen, holding each other as their kiss got more and more heated. The urge to breathe eventually became stronger than their passion, and they broke the kiss. Naruto placed his forehead against Hinata, having already removed his headband, and smiled at the girl he loved. Okay, Naruto acquiesced, still holding her. Do you want me to do first, or do you want to do me? Naruto asked. I'll do you first. Hinata answered, some of her shyness reasserting itself. She pulled back from his embrace, grabbing the oil Rokuro had given them. I'll go put some towels down, okay? Okay, Hinata. Naruto smiled as her confidence returned. Just let me know when things are ready. Hinata smiled before nodding, and she quickly made her way towards Naruto's room. She placed the oil on his dresser before removing her jacket, leaving her in her mesh shirt and bra. She moved into the bathroom, grabbing 2 towels and laying them on Naruto's bed. She blushed at the thought of them being in the same bed, but she wanted to do this, not only so she and Naruto could continue their training, but also so she could explore his body. Naruto stripped himself of his jacket, leaving it hanging on one of the hooks near his front door. He headed back to the kitchen to sit down, but at that moment Hinata stepped out of his room. Naruto's eyes widened at the sight of her without her jacket, and a trickle of blood leaked out of his nose. He had never seen her without baggy clothes on, and he realized just how big her chest actually was. Hinata squirmed uncomfortably under his gaze, very conscious of her body. Years of being told she wasn't good enough had made her very body conscious, which was the reason why she wore such baggy clothing. Naruto's gaze made her think that she was a freak because of her large chest, because no other girl her age had anything even close to her size. Hinata, wow, Naruto said in amazement. You're so beautiful. Really? Hinata asked, blushing at his compliment. No one had ever called her beautiful before, and she had no idea how to respond. Yeah, believe it, Naruto said with a small smile. While he had mostly been focused on her chest, he looked over the rest of her too, and he absolutely thought she was beautiful. Hey, thank you, Naruto, she said softly, her blush growing moderately more intense. Everything's ready. Huh? Oh, right. Naruto remembered. So, what do I do? Well, why you would need to put on some SH shorts, Hinata stammered, her mind thinking indecent thoughts about what they were about to do. Takes that way I can do wire eye legs, she said timidly, blushing furiously. Right, just wait here. Naruto gave her a quick peck on the lips before closing the door to his room. He quickly pulled off his shirt, wincing at his sore muscles, and then pulled off his pants, throwing them in his laundry pile. He quickly slipped on a pair of dark orange gym shorts before reopening the door. Hinata grabbed his hand and led him over to the bed, trying not to stare at him, then made him lie down on his stomach. She simply stared as he adjusted himself, nearly drooling at the sight of his toned body. While his muscles weren't very large, they were defined, the results of hours spent training. Her hands trembled as she thought of running them along his body, and then they suddenly clenched. With a new determination, Hinata grabbed a small jar of oil and scooped some out with her fingers. Taking a deep breath, she sat on the end of the bed, gently pacing her hands on Naruto's calves. Naruto shuddered at the cold sensation as the oil touched his body. Hinata noticed, and quickly clarified that the oil would warm up. She slowly moved her hands up and down Naruto's calves, gently kneading his muscles. Naruto let out a low moan, burying his face in the pillow underneath his head. Hinata continued upwards, slowly massaging the back of Naruto's legs. She got fairly close to his butt, but she was still too timid to attempt massaging there yet. During this time, Naruto continued to moan, amazed at how good it felt. Her slender fingers seemed to cause all the soreness of their training melt away. Hinata finished with his legs, and in another moment of confidence, she scooted up his body, planting herself on the backs of his thighs. Naruto was surprised by her boldness, but made no comment. Hinata scooped another bit of oil onto her hands before pressing them into Naruto's lower back. This sent shivers down the blonde's spine, and not just from the temperature. Her expert hands seemed to pick out every knot and sore spot on his back, and he moaned even louder at the healing touch. As she worked her way up his back and then down his arms, Naruto became glad of the fact that he was lying face down. Her hands all over his body had caused him no small amount of excitement. Hinata rubbed her hands along his back and arms as she finished, tracing the lines of his defined muscles. She felt like she could explore his body for hours, but the man beneath her had other ideas. After calming his erection a suitable amount, he flipped over, grabbing Hinata's arms with a smirk. "Now it's your turn, Hinata," he said suggestively. However, much to his surprise, Hinata didn't blush. Instead, she simply leaned down and stole a quick kiss from him. She sat back onto her, but wondering how he was going to massage her when she had no appropriate clothes. "Come on, Hinata, off with the clothes." Naruto grinned perversely and couldn't help but chuckle at the light blush on her face. Before her mind could even process what she was doing, Hinata simply took off her shirt and pants, throwing them to the side to stand there in her underwear. Naruto's jaw dropped as he beheld the angel in front of him. Hinata wore a plain purple bra and panties that were fairly modest, but she still seemed to be incredibly sexy. Naruto couldn't keep his eyes off her, and Hinata noticed. A crimson blush spread on her face, but despite her embarrassment, a large part of her felt happy that her body was attractive to Naruto. And in Naruto, "PL, please don't SD stare," Hinata muttered, her shyness coming back. Even though she trusted Naruto, and even though he had said she was beautiful, she still felt uncomfortable with her body. Naruto quickly moved his eyes with a muttered sorry before gesturing to the bed. Hinata lay down quickly, glad that she could cover her breasts. Naruto drank in her form once more, admiring her beauty, before he started to massage her feet. As he worked, Hinata began to whimper. Having his strong, warm hands touch her was more than she could bear, and a strange heat formed in her nether regions. As Naruto slowly worked his way up her legs, marveling at how soft and smooth her skin was, the heat between her legs gradually became moist. Hinata gripped the sheets tightly, trying to fight the urge to touch herself. Never before had she felt this way, even when she had been thinking about Naruto. His close proximity and hands on her body evoked feelings she never knew she had. The heat only grew more intense as Naruto moved from her upper thighs to her back, straddling her. For his part, Naruto showed a large amount of control over himself. He was better equipped to deal with the attraction he was feeling towards Hinata, so it was easier for him to control his arousal. That didn't mean it wasn't hard. Naruto had to concentrate on massaging her while not getting excited, and it was damn hard to do so. Naruto encountered his first obstacle, namely her bra. He went to move his hands above it, but then a devious thought crossed his mind. Before he could consider the consequences of his actions, he unclipped her bra, letting the straps fall to the side. Hinata gasped at the loss of her clothing, but when she opened her mouth to protest, all that came out was a soft moan. Naruto had taken the opportunity to massage the area where her bra had been, and it just felt too good for her to do anything about it. Naruto spent the next few minutes concentrating on Hinata's upper back and neck, while trying desperately to keep his hormones under control. Hinata did the same, and although his hands felt very good on her body, she was relieved as his hands finished touching her. Naruto just sat on Hinata's body, admiring her beauty once more, before he quickly got off. He blushed and turned away as Hinata reattached the bra straps, making sure nothing had slipped out during her massage. She stood up and looked at Naruto curiously, wondering why he was so embarrassed. I'm sorry, Hinata," he mumbled softly. "I got carried away, and I should have asked you first." He didn't finish the sentence, because what Hinata did next stunned him. She reached over and grabbed his hand, then pressed it to her covered chest. Naruto was stunned, and he quickly retracted his hand. "Who are you, and what have you done with my Hinata?" he asked in mock horror. Hinata was initially hurt by his reaction, but couldn't help giggling at his response. Then she remembered what had triggered said response, and she turned a bright crimson. "I just thought, maybe you wanted to, Naruto cut her off as he pressed his lips to hers. She quickly reciprocated the kiss, and it soon grew more and more heated. Hinata slid her arms around Naruto's neck, and he slung one around her waist. In the heat of their passion, the other one of Naruto's hands slid up to her chest, grabbing her breast. Hinata moaned into the kiss at the touch. She had never even touched herself there, due to her low self-confidence and her clan's strict rules. Having Naruto touch her there simply felt right. She began to feel a strange sensation in her stomach as he kneaded her breast, and as it escalated she hastily withdrew from his embrace, unsure how to handle her new feelings. Naruto reacted instantly, terrified that he had done something wrong. "Oh God, I'm so sorry, Hinata. You're just so beautiful." Naruto was completely ashamed, afraid that he had ruined the moment. Hinata smiled softly. The concern he held for others and their feelings before his own was part of the reason she loved him. "It's fine, Naruto." Hinata wrapped her arms around his waist from behind, resting her head on his back. I'm not ready for this yet, but we can try again tomorrow." Okay, Hinata." Naruto grinned at her words. They were both just scared and needed time to sort out their feelings. However, in the end, they both wanted to take their relationship to the next step. They just weren't sure how. But for now, they simply held each other, content to simply rest in the other's embrace. They slowly laid down on the bed and gradually drifted off to sleep in each other's arms. Naruto groaned at the light that filtered through his window. His sleep-befuddled mind was struggling to get his bearings as he attempted to sit up, only to be stopped by a weight on his chest. Frowning, he looked down to see Hinata holding him in her sleep, preventing him from getting out of bed. Hinata's hair was fanned out, and she was sleeping on her side. After they had fallen asleep, she had unconsciously cuddled up to Naruto into her current position. Her arm was thrown across his chest, and her body was pressed up against his. Both were still in their underwear, and this caused Naruto to blush. Despite the events from last night, he couldn't help but admire her body, and her large chest caused his morning wood to become even more rigid. Naruto, being the gentleman that he was, didn't attempt to get up again, despite his discomfort. He was painfully hard, but he simply lay down and stroked Hinata's hair. This caused the girl to mumble and pull herself closer to him, nuzzling into his chest. Naruto smiled at the action, any perverted thoughts leaving his mind. The two lay there for nearly half an hour before Hinata stirred from her sleep. Her lavender eyes opened slowly, to be met with bright blue ones. "Hey, beautiful," Naruto said with a smile. "Sleep well." "Yes," Hinata mumbled, still half asleep, with a small smile of her own. She pulled herself up onto Naruto's chest with her arms, planting a small kiss on his lips. His words and actions last night had resonated in her, and she had become more confident. "That's good," Naruto said, kissing her lightly. "But we really should get up. We only have 20 minutes before we have to be at the training grounds." And Naruto sniffed his armpit, pulling a disgusted face. "We didn't shower last night." "Gross, huh?" This elicited a small giggle from Hinata, who slowly swung herself to the edge of the bed. She stood up slowly and stretched, unaware of the effect she was having on Naruto, who simply stared. With Hinata in her underwear, Naruto nearly had a severe nosebleed at the sight of her body. When Hinata noticed Naruto's stare in her current state of dress, she blushed a deep red before quickly moving into the bathroom. She scooped up her training clothes along the way, not needing new clothes since they would be training again, and shut the door behind her. "You don't need to hide, you know," Naruto called. "You're still as beautiful as I said last night." Naruto grinned at the memory before standing up himself. Amazingly, his body was almost as good as new. Naruto resolved to thank Rokuro for the oil, as well as the suggestion that they apply it to one another. Nearly 20 minutes later, a showered and fed Hinata and Naruto were approaching the same training spot, walking hand in hand. They were simply content to be in each other's presence, neither wanting to break the peaceful silence. It wouldn't be quiet for long, after all. "Ah, nice of you to show up," Rokuro greeted as the duo walked into the clearing. "So, based on the fact that you're both walking, I assume you use the oil, right?" he asked. When both of them blushed, one lightly and one heavily, he simply laughed. Rokuro seemed to take a malicious pleasure in embarrassing the couple, and today was no exception. "Why, yes. Tage thank you for the oil and the ad advice." Hinata spoke up, surprising everyone. After he got over his shock, Naruto reiterated the statements. "Hey, no problem," Rokuro said nonchalantly. "Happy to help. Now, let's get started." He summoned the 2 packs from yesterday, tossing them forward. Both of his temporary students groaned as they dodged the packs, before resigning themselves to the pain. "Okay, Naruto, let's get started on your wind manipulation," Rokuro ordered. After their warm-up, Hinata's whole workout, he had Naruto practicing taijutsu for half the time they had been yesterday. This puzzled the blonde, until he was informed of the ninjutsu practice. "Really? All right." The blonde punched the air in excitement. "Can you teach me that teleporting thing you do?" "No, not yet," Rokuro informed him. "That requires greater chakra control than you possess right now, along with higher speed. Once you can punch and kick as fast as I can, as well as do your Rasengan with one hand, then we'll talk." Naruto pouted at this. He had informed his cousin of all his jutsu during visits to him in prison, so he knew how long it was going to be before he could learn it. "Hey, cheer up, knucklehead." Rokuro put a hand on his shoulder. "You're good enough at close quarters fighting already. It's time you learn some range techniques." Naruto perked up a bit at the praise. "Okay, so what kind of stuff can you teach me?" "Well, this first one is deadly and doesn't require much chakra." Rokuro flashed through several hand signs. "Wind style, palm scythe." He moved his hand, palm facing forward, in a slashing motion. A stream of compressed air shot out of his palm, moving at incredible speeds. It cut clean through several trees before dissipating into simple air. "Wait, nothing happened." Naruto scratched the back of his head confused at his words. Rokuro walked over to one of the trees he had hit before pushing on it. The whole top half of the tree moved, revealing a perfectly straight cut. "Whoa, that's amazing," Naruto gasped. "Right, let's see you give it a try," Rokuro said. After instructing him on the hand seals, Naruto nodded before gathering his chakra. "Wind style, palm scythe," Naruto shouted, careful to aim in the opposite direction of Hinata. The girl was moving at a slightly faster pace than yesterday, but she was still struggling to move at more than a shuffle. Naruto began to move his arm in a slashing motion before being blasted back by the blast. Instead of coming out in a blade-like stream, the chakra simply came out of his hand all at once in a large ball. Said blast tore through the trees Naruto had been aiming at, splintering two before losing power. Naruto simply lay on the ground in a daze as Rokuro crouched by his head. "That was good, but let's try that again." The blonde nodded dumbly before getting to his feet. "All right, this time I want you to let out your chakra slower, like when you're forming your Rasen Shuriken," he added, hoping that this would get through to him. Having spoken with Kakashi, he knew how difficult it was to explain things to Naruto sometimes. "Right." Naruto flashed through the hand signs once again. "Wind style, palm scythe," he shouted. This time, he made it about halfway through the motion before being knocked off his feet. "Again, let your chakra out in a constant stream, not just all at once," Rokuro said patiently. Naruto nodded, before doing exactly the same thing as before. It's going to be a long day. The redhead sighed. 00000 Naruto and Hinata lay on the grass next to the creek, panting heavily. The sun hung just above the treetops, casting long shadows as it sank lower and lower. Naruto's training had been successful, if only just. He had managed to get the technique down, although it wasn't as controlled. Hinata had completed 5 laps in addition to the 20 assigned to her. All in all, a successful day. Well, you two did great today, Rokuro praised, earning a smile from the two. But Naruto, we're not done yet. What? The blonde exclaimed. Come on, I can't even stand. He whined. Really? You, of all people, are turning down more training. Well, when I can't even move, so how am I supposed to train? I have no chakra left. Oh, you can get more chakra. You just have to ask. Rokuro folded his arms, and Naruto froze at his words. Hinata just looked between them, confused. Why you can know about that? Naruto stuttered, genuine fear in his voice. Yes, I do. Rokuro's expression softened at the look of pure horror on his cousin's face. I know all about it, and I think you're a hero. Everyone thought you were a monster, but I just think of how amazing your sacrifice is. Really? You don't hate me? Naruto had the beginnings of tears in his eyes, simply asking the question to keep himself from crying. Of course I do. Rokuro grinned. Many people hate Jinchuriki, but I think that is an injustice. They never asked to have a tailed beast, and most have no control over it. But all of them are heroes for giving up their chances for a normal life to seal away such evil. Hinata slowly realized what they were talking about, her face showing her concern. Naruto simply let the tears flow, and a matching grin spread across his face. Hinata scooted closer to him and interlocked her fingers with his, smiling as well. Naruto had been afraid that when his cousin found out about the Nine Tails, he would react like everyone else. The acceptance of his prisoner made him incredibly happy. Thanks. Naruto managed to get out. His cousin simply shrugged his shoulders. I never understood the hatred. It seems pointless, like hating someone for their skin color or birthplace. Rokuro shrugged again before continuing. Now, how about you access some of that Nine Tails chakra to give yourself a boost? Naruto nodded, drying the last of the tears on his face. He gave Hinata's hand a squeeze before letting go. Struggling to his feet, he closed his eyes and concentrated on accessing the fox's chakra. After a moment, red swirls built up around him, flailing wildly before concentrating into his stomach. He opened his eyes flashing red for a moment, then reverting back to their original blue. Naruto looked questioningly at his cousin, curious about what he was going to learn next. Rokuro nodded before beginning his lecture of the new jutsu. Now, I think you know this one, or have at least seen it. Rokuro explained. We are going to fire a compressed ball of air from our mouth after concentrating the chakra in our lungs. Naruto nodded, recalling his fight with Shikaku, the one-tail and Gaara's former tailed beast. This was going to be a smaller version of that jutsu. Flashing through the hand signs, Rokuro held his hand up to his mouth. Wind style, air bullet. His chest expanded before a ball of compressed air shot out of his mouth, crushing a nearby rock and leaving a small crater. Naruto stepped forward after learning the hand signs, going through them as well. Wind style, air bullet. A ball of compressed air shot out of his mouth, causing even more destruction than Rokuro's bullet. Several trees were bent and uprooted, and an even larger crater was present. Sejenin simply grinned and rubbed the back of his head, embarrassed by the praise. Hinata, who had gradually moved to a sitting position, simply smiled at his success. There had been no doubt in her mind that Naruto would get the jutsu on his first try. Well, that's all I can think of for today. How about you two go home for the night, okay? Rokuro offered. As I said earlier, you both did great, so take the rest of the day to relax. Both of the younger shinobi nodded, pleased with themselves. They could feel their strength and speed growing as they trained with the eldest Uzumaki, and both felt that within weeks they would be much stronger shinobi. Hinata had a hard time getting to her feet, and even when she did, she swayed uncertainly. Naruto moved to support her, but at a gesture from Rokuro, he picked her up, bridal style. The Nine-Tails chakra had invigorated him, and while he knew he would crash later, he currently had energy to spare. "Now, Naruto?" Hinata squealed, turning red. Naruto laughed at her blush before setting off towards the Leaf Village. "I'm fine, really. You must be tired to—" Hinata was cut off as Naruto pressed his lips to hers, silencing the girl's protest. After he pulled back, she merely accepted the embrace and buried her face in his jacket. Rokuro observed the intimate moment with a grin. He could see how much the two loved each other, and it was obvious that they truly loved one another. No matter how young they were, they knew what love was, and the one they shared was definitely more than a crush or a fling. That love would soon be tested. As the gates of the Leaf Village came into sight, a man was standing in front of them with his arms crossed, barely contained fury in his eyes. Niji Hyuga had come to find his little cousin. Naruto balked at the sight of the Hyuga, and he quickly placed Hinata on her feet. The heiress looked resigned to her cousin's interference, even though she had constantly reassured him that Naruto was a good person. The good person looked to his cousin for support, who simply nodded in return. "Naruto," Niji said coldly at their approach, "where exactly have you and Lady Hinata been for the past 2 days?" "Training with me, actually," Rokuro interrupted. "I have been training Naruto in our clan's techniques, and Hinata asked me to help her with her endurance training as well." "Very well. That explains where they have been during the day." Niji stepped forward, a menacing tone in his low voice. "But that still doesn't tell me why she did not return home last night." Well, you see..." Naruto began to sweat under the Hyuga prodigy's gaze, but was saved when Hinata stepped forward. "Niji, I slept in Naruto's last night," she said calmly. "And no, he did not take advantage of me. I trust him, and so should you." Niji appeared surprised by his cousin's confidence. She had never asserted himself so firmly around him, even though he had encouraged her to do so. He took a half-step backwards, bowing his head slightly. "Of course, Lady Hinata," he said apologetically. "However, Lord Hayashi gave me very strict orders to make sure you were home by sundown." "I'm sorry, Niji, but that will not be possible," Hinata said softly, greatly shocking those present. "I apologize, but Naruto and I have not finished our training for the day. But I will be home by my usual curfew," she stated briskly, grabbing Naruto's hand and leading him away. Niji was blown away by her statement. She had never, ever refused an order from her father. But, "Come on, Niji, let's go talk somewhere. It's time I got to know Naruto's friends. Besides the ones I kicked the crap out of." Rokuro grabbed the shorter man by the shoulder, steering him in the opposite direction. He glanced over his shoulder and smiled reassuringly at his cousin, as if to say, "I got him. You two go and do what you want." But, Niji continued to babble, his eloquent mind failing him for the first time in his life. Rokuro slung an arm around his shoulder, silencing his mindless repetition. "Come on, Niji. Let's give our cousin some privacy. You can introduce me to the rest of the gang," he said happily. The two men had briefly met when Rokuro had been brought in, but they had yet to make conversation. Rokuro genuinely wanted to meet Naruto's friends, and now was just a convenient time to do so. 00000 Naruto smiled at the retreating figures as Hinata dragged him towards his apartment building. Granted, Hinata's refusal of his orders had stunned him, but Rokuro's initial explanation and subsequent distraction had kept things from getting violent. He was glad he could count on his cousin for backup if he ever needed it. Naruto stopped his musings as he looked at Hinata. The blue-haired girl had become so much more confident in the past month since they had begun spending time together. But this was a whole new level. He was proud of her, and deep down he was glad that she had finally refused her father. walking faster to draw level with her, and let go of her hand and wrapped his arm around her slender shoulders. "That was really cool, Hinata," he said quietly, kissing her on the temple. "I've never seen you stand up for yourself like that." "Well, I was just so tired of Niji to thinking that you would take advantage of Emmy." She blushed, Naruto's comment bringing out her shy side. "Yo, you're a gentleman, and you would never do that." "Thanks, Hinata." Naruto grinned perversely, his thoughts drifting to what happened the night before. "But if tonight is anything like last night, I can't promise that I won't try something." Hinata turned crimson, and one hand began fidgeting with her jacket's zipper. Naruto laughed at her blush, before bending down and kissing her on the cheek. "I'm just kidding, Hinata. I just like to see that cute blush." In spite of embarrassment, Hinata couldn't help but giggle as he called her cute. By this time, the two shinobi had reached Naruto's apartment building. Climbing the stairs, they soon found themselves in front of Naruto's door. Naruto, and strangely Hinata, couldn't wait to explore the other's body once again, so they quickly flung open the door. However, they both stopped in surprise as they stared at the two dark figures that were inside the apartment. "Who the hell are you?" Naruto asked angrily after he recovered from the initial surprise. "And what are you doing in my apartment?" "How rude." The Shirawaka Minamoto said mockingly. He stepped out into the light, revealing himself to be a young man only slightly older than Naruto. His short black hair was spiked upwards unnaturally, and cold amber eyes looked out of a pale face. "We come all this way, and that's the greeting we get." Now, son," Sanjo chastised. He too stepped forward, and the family resemblance became obvious. The same black hair was swept back into a small ponytail, and the same cold amber's eyes appraised the two. He placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "You can't expect good hospitality from a delinquent and a demon after all." Hinata recovered from her shock, glaring at the two angrily. "Get out of here, Shirawaka. I already told you and your father. The answer is no." Naruto was surprised by her anger, but he didn't let it show on his face. He had never seen Hinata angry before, so these men must have done something very wrong. "Look, I don't know who you are, Shirawaka, but you should leave. Now." His tone dropped low, and he radiated killing intent. Shirawaka seemed unmoved by the anger. "Oh, I'm not going anywhere. Not until I get what I want." He stared unblinkingly into Naruto's eyes, and for a moment Naruto thought he had blinked, even though his eyelids hadn't moved. "Yes, we will get what we came for," Sanjo said ominously, staring into Hinata's eyes. For a moment she experienced the same flash of darkness as Naruto, but she dismissed it as well. "I told you, I refuse your proposal." Hinata shouted at Shirawaka. "Now leave me alone." The younger man seemed cowed by this, turning to his father. "You know what? I think we should probably go, father," he suggested meekly. "No," the older man growled. "I'm not leaving here until I get what I want." Before Hinata could react, the man reached forward and grabbed Naruto by the throat, slamming him up against the apartment's wall. Pulling out a kunai, he brought his arm back. "No! Naruto!" Hinata screamed. "Father, stop!" Shirawaka shouted. Their words fell on deaf ears, and before either of them could move, Sanjo plunged the kunai into Naruto's chest, piercing his heart. His blue eyes widened and his mouth hung open. The life gradually faded from his eyes, and his body went limp. Sanjo released his hold on Naruto's throat, letting the body slump to the floor. Hinata ran forward, pushing both Minamotos out of the way. Shirawaka was rooted to the spot in horror, and Sanjo simply looked at the body with contempt. "That was the hero of the Leaf Village," he sneered. "The Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails? How pathetic." "Father," Shirawaka whispered with horror. He was still standing in the same spot, an expression of terror and shock written on his face. "You wanted a girl, son," the older man said grimly. "This was the price." "No," his son said. barely audible over Hinata sobbing. Not like this. Hinata was simply too occupied to notice. She cradled Naruto's head to her chest, her cries racking her body. The pain she felt was unbelievable, almost as if she had been the one to be stabbed, not Naruto. Her tears ran down her face, soaking her jacket and falling onto Naruto's face. "No!" she whispered, her voice filled with pain. "No! We were together now. We were supposed to be together forever." "Nerd," she cried out, her grief becoming too much to take. She fell forward, sprawling across his body, unconscious. "Naruto," Hinata shouted, falling to the ground unconscious. "Hinata," Naruto shouted, running over to her, sliding. He caught her before she hit the ground, cradling her body in his arms. "Hinata, Hinata, wake up! It's me! It's Naruto!" he cried, his voice filled with worry and fear. "She obviously can't hear you, moron." Shirowaka mocked. "We placed her under our clan's special genjutsu, which is what my father is controlling now. Let Hinata go, or I swear I'll kill you." Naruto growled. He gently placed Hinata on the ground before standing up, his fists clenched as he struggled to retain his rage. For his part, Shirowaka appeared unmoved by his rage, his sneer still plastered on his face. Sanjo released his hand sign, having caused Hinata to pass out. While maintaining the genjutsu, he was forced to remain still, but now that she was asleep there was no need for him to continue using it. "Just what I'd expect from a demon," Sanjo said coldly. "Son, you know what to do. Knock this boy out, so we can continue on our way." "Yes, father." Shirowaka formed a simple hand sign, and the world before Naruto receded. 00000, he found himself confronted by his worst nightmare. The Leaf Village was burning, and blood was splattered everywhere. Naruto watched in horror as Sai, Neji, and Kiba leapt at a figure standing on the village wall, only to be impaled by arms of chakra. He screamed as he watched their limp bodies tossed aside, before his view shifted once more. Naruto regarded the remains of his former through cold eyes. As the smoke cleared, he could see the Nine Tails for the first time. Fire erupted from its mouth, bathing large swaths of land in a blazing inferno, and each one of its tails lashed out, causing unbelievable amounts of devastation. Naruto realized that eyes he was watching through were his own, and that he was the one destroying his precious village. Even the shock of his own actions was soon eclipsed as a figure approached him. A slightly older Hinata, dressed in a full Jonin outfit, launched herself at him, crying out as she activated her twin lion fists. Naruto watched in sheer terror, a prisoner inside his own mind, as his body moved to attack her with no hesitation. He cried out in pain as he tried to stop himself, all to no avail. He was forced to watch as Hinata was grabbed by one of his chakra arms and pulled in close. "Why are you doing this, Naruto?" She screamed at him, tears of pain and sadness on her face. "Why would you destroy our village? Why did you kill our friends? I thought you loved the Hidden Leaf. I thought you loved our friends. I thought you loved me." The last part was barely audible to him, and kept screaming out her name, telling her that she loved him, that he wasn't the one doing this. The body that Naruto inhabited simply cocked its head, as if Hinata were a curious bug it had found. Its deep, menacing voice spoke for the first time. "I have no idea what you're talking about. I never loved this village, and I never loved anyone, certainly not you. The only thing I have ever loved," Naruto's body smiled, revealing razor-sharp teeth, "is killing." Naruto's body crushed Hinata, sending a spray of blood high into the air. Naruto screamed, and unbelievable pain ripped through his body. It was as if his own heart had been ripped out of him and crushed right in front of him. He couldn't take the pain anymore, and his vision swam as he began to black out. Just as he was about to give up and embrace the darkness, a deep voice, not unlike his future self, rang through his skull. "This is pathetic," the Nine Tails scoffed. Naruto, his pain and fear momentarily forgotten, perked up at the voice. I will help you, but only to stop your incessant whining. Your weakness offends me, and I will not tolerate a weak host. So, get up, boy. Fight!" The Nine Tails roared, and the vision Naruto had been experiencing instantly shattered, falling to pieces as he regained his senses. 00000, let's go, father. Shirawaka whined impatiently. We need to get out of here before anyone comes to investigate the screams. I know, son. I'm almost done. The older man finished tying the knots around Hinata. He gently picked her up, slinging her unconscious form over his shoulder. Now, let's take your new bride back home, so you can begin to work your charms. Yes, let's. The Minamoto heir rubbed his hands together, as if they were discussing a delicious food. Once I can convince her of my innocence, that killing the boy and kidnapping her was your idea, I can begin to win her over, he declared triumphantly. They both proceeded down the stairs of Naruto's apartment building, before hastily making for the village entrance. I will be the only good thing in her life, the one to comfort her after the love of her life had been killed. He laughed maniacally before his father shushed him. As the two moved through the village, a pair of blood-red eyes snapped open, teeth elongated, and whiskers grew more prominent. Blonde hair became wilder, and the figure snapped to all fours. Bubbling, boiling red chakra appeared all over his body, forming three tails that extended from his cloak. Naruto quickly processed his surroundings, instantly noting that Hinata and the two men were not present. He instantly closed his eyes again, concentrating on nearby chakra signatures. He recognized two of them, before focusing all his attention on the second. Hinata was moving swiftly out of the village, along with two unknown chakra signatures. He growled at the thought, instantly launching himself off his apartment building. The floor in front of his own room cracked and shattered under the force, but the possessed blonde paid no heed to it. Naruto landed heavily in the street, before taking off at high speed for the village gates. There was a familiar shout behind him, but he ignored it, too focused on his prey. He flashed across the rooftops, rapidly gaining on his goal. The three chakra signature he had been focused on had sped up, moving outside the village, but he was much faster than them. He sped past the two unconscious Chunin at the gate before taking to the trees. Branches snapped in his wake as he closed the gap between him and Hinata. Shirawaka and Sanjo slowed down, confident they had gotten away. They both spun around as they heard a guttural growl behind them. Naruto was crouched low to the ground, every muscle tense as he prepared to attack the two kidnappers. How? Shirawaka looked dumbfounded, before smacking himself on the forehead. Of course, the Nine Tails chakra would interfere with his regular chakra, breaking the genjutsu. I should have considered this dash. Give me back Hinata. Naruto roared. Killing intent and chakra radiated off of him in waves, and he moved menacingly forward. If you don't, I'll tear you apart. Son, now might not be the best time to do this, Sanjo commented. He was completely calm, unaffected by Naruto's power or threat. He quickly shrugged the unconscious body off his shoulder one in neat movement, causing Naruto to pause before continuing his advance. However, Naruto growled and halted completely as the Minamoto clan had pulled out a kunai, resting it against Hinata's neck. Shirawaka caught on, stepping up to his father's side. Come any closer, and Hinata dies. I would rather her be dead than be with a demon like you, he sneered. You bastards. Naruto growled. He took a step forward, but retreated when Sanjo pressed his kunai against Hinata's neck, drawing a trickle of blood. He pounded his hands into the dirt, frustrated. There was no way he was letting them take Hinata, but he couldn't see a way out of the situation. Naruto! A shout came from the trees, causing everyone to spin around, looking for the source of the sound. Rokuro appeared, dropping to the ground behind Naruto. He rushed forward, then stopped as he saw Hinata held hostage. He settled into a fighting stance, ready to back up his cousin. Rokuro! These bastards are trying to kidnap Hinata. Naruto rasped out, his voice full feral. wild fury. His cousin shifted his gaze to him, briefly taking in his transformed state before returning his focus to the enemy. "Is that so?" Rokuro asked, a hard edge to his voice. He had been walking to Naruto's apartment, intending to check up on the young couple, when he had spotted Naruto launch himself out of the building. He was fast, but not nearly fast enough to keep up with Naruto in Nine-Tails state, so he had followed as quickly as he could. Rokuro intended to protect his cousin and his cousin's girlfriend, because they were both a part of his family now. He had abandoned a member of his family once before, and he had no intention of doing so again. "Who the hell are you?" Shirawaka demanded, irritated by the turn of events. This newcomer was an unknown, and he couldn't be sure they could hold him off, along with Naruto. "This is a private matter," he stated. Rokuro's eyes narrowed, annoyed by the boy's insolence. Granted, he appeared to be the same age as Rokuro, but he acted and sounded like a spoiled brat. Plus, he was scrawny and weak-looking. The playing field a bit. Before anyone could blink, Rokuro was behind Shirawaka with a kunai pressed against the smaller man's throat. "Well, considering that Naruto is my cousin, and you're holding his girlfriend, who may I remind you is the heiress to the Hyuga clan, I'd say I have plenty to do with this," he replied coldly. "Now, why don't we level?" Sanjo merely stared in disbelief. Neither he nor his son had seen the other man move, and yet there he was, holding the young heir hostage. He slowly backed up, holding Hinata close, intending to gain some distance. "Father!" Shirawaka shouted, his eyes wide with terror. He had not been expecting to be put in actual physical danger during his plan. He had led a sheltered life, and no one before had dared lay a hand on him. "Help me!" Sanjo cursed under his breath, unsure how to handle the new situation. The plan had gone smoothly, right up until the Nine-Tails had shown up. From there, it had all gone downhill. Now, he had no other options. "I'll make a deal. I'll release the girl, and you give me back my son. Then we'll forget about this whole thing, and no one gets hurt. Deal." Rokuro pretended to contemplate his offer, avoiding eye contact. "I accept your dash, what?" Naruto exploded. He stood silent for a few moments after his outburst, trying to stay in control of the Nine-Tails. The only thing keeping him from going on a rampage was the thought of Hinata and what might happen if he tried to make a move. "Why are we making a deal with this scum?" He managed to get out, his control starting to slip. Naruto clammed down. Rokuro ordered calmly, "You can't lose control of the Nine-Tails. I need you for this next part." At that, his cousin glanced at him, confused. Rokuro ignored the look, staring directly at Sanjo. "As I was saying, I accept your terms. But you're not walking away from this. We're going to take you to Lady Tsunade, and your actions shall be judged in court. Or you can try and kill Hinata and die right here, right now." "So," he lowered his voice, pressing the kunai tighter to Shirawaka's neck. "What's it gonna be?" Sanjo considered this for a moment. Obviously, he stood no chance against the two. Both were far more powerful than him, and his genjutsu was useless on the Jinchuriki. His best hope was to use his wealth and influence to pay off the Hokage. Very well. Sanjo put away his kunai, letting Hinata drop to the floor. She hit the ground with a dull thud, still blacked out from the ordeal. Fine then. Rokuro drew back his arm, reversing his grip on the kunai. Using the hilt, he swashed the kunai into the side of Shirawaka's head, knocked the brat out, dropping his body. He ignored the angry look on Sanjo's face before turning to Naruto. "Go ahead. Let some of your anger out." He gestured to Sanjo, who involuntarily backed up a pace. "But do not kill him. Understand?" Naruto nodded, smiling evilly. Sanjo attempted to pick up Hinata once more, trying to use the girl as a shield. Before he could move even one step, Naruto's fist smashed into his face, breaking his nose and sending him flying. The older man screamed out in pain, his cry being cut off as he smashed into a tree. Amazingly, He was still conscious and was able to sit up. Naruto sat before him, his nine-tails cloak disappearing. The blonde grinned sadistically, drawing back his fist for another punch. Rokuro merely sighed, sitting down on top of Shirwaka's unconscious form. He resigned himself to waiting for a while, as Naruto continued to pummel the man who had threatened Hinata. Screams of pain echoed through the forest as Naruto beat the man to within an inch of his life. As Naruto drew back his fist for the final blow, Rokuro's hand caught his wrist, halting the attack. Naruto looked back angrily, before all traces of rage left him. Rokuro had a concerned look on his face, worried that his cousin had been pushed over the edge. The last of the Nine-Tails chakra left him, and Naruto felt exhausted. He stood up, his eyes slowly fading back to their original blue. His trademark grin appeared, reassuring Rokuro that he was back in control. Rokuro nodded, a smile of his own appearing. He gestured to Hinata's fallen form, and Naruto's grin quickly disappeared. He ran over to the fallen girl, picking her up in his arms, his face creased with worry. "Hey, Hinata, Hinata. Come on. Wake up, Hinata." He shook her gently, begging her to wake up. Rokuro tapped him on the shoulder, and Naruto looked back at him, the worry on his face obvious. His cousin had picked up both kidnappers, and he jerked his head towards the village. "Let's go, Naruto. We have to report this to the Hokage, and get these three to the hospital." He told Naruto, "Hinata's fine. Her pulse is stable, so she should wake up soon. For now, let's just get back, okay?" The relief was instantaneous. Naruto grinned, happy that nothing was wrong with his girlfriend. He adjusted her weight in his arms, placing an arm behind her shoulders and one behind her knees. Her head lolled onto his shoulder, and he smiled down at her sleeping face. She looked so beautiful to him, no matter what she looked like. Both shinobi looked as if they had been put through hell, since they had been interrupted and had no time to shower or recover from the day's training. "Hey, let's get a move on," Rokuro shouted, already several yards up the road. Naruto, shaken out of his thoughts, frowned slightly before taking off down the path. As he drew level with Rokuro, a thought crossed his mind. "Hey, Rokuro, how did you find me in Hinata?" he asked. "Oh, that's easy," Rokuro responded. "I was actually coming to see you guys, because I had some news for you." He paused in his speech, making Naruto anxious. "Well, what was it?" Naruto asked impatiently. At a raised eyebrow from Rokuro, he pouted, pushing out his bottom lip. "Come on, tell me," he whined. "Lady Tsunade has awoken, and she wanted to speak with you and Hinata." Rokuro relented, a grin spreading across his face. "Grandma Tsunade is awake?" Naruto shouted. "All right." Despite his exhaustion, Naruto managed a little dance, while still being careful not to jostle Hinata. Rokuro laughed at the antics, continuing his story. "Yeah, she's awake." Rokuro continued. "I was called into a meeting with her, discussing my place here in the Leaf Village and your progress. After telling her my story and Karen's, she agreed to let me stay. I can even become an official shinobi, since they need every single one they can get their hands on. Also, she personally told me that she was happy I was around, if only to keep you out of her hair." "Hey, what's that supposed to mean?" Naruto whined, upset that Tsunade thought he was such a nuisance. Rokuro laughed, adjusting the bodies over his shoulder while he did so. "Nothing personal, cuz, but you are a bit of a handful." Naruto pouted again, and Rokuro smiled. "You know, if you keep pouting like that, your face is going to get stuck like that," he joked, earning another pout. "But seriously, Lady Tsunade is happy that you finally have some family around, even if I was a little late." Rokuro said the last part with a tinge of guilt, and Naruto noticed immediately. "Hey, it's fine," he reassured. "You found me, and that's all that matters. I don't blame you for my childhood or how the villagers treated me. I mean, come on, everyone reported that I was dead," he finished, smiling at his cousin. "Yeah, okay." Rokuro conceded, a small frown still on his face. But I promise, I won't ever leave you or Karen alone again, and I will protect you guys with my life, he said seriously. Naruto was shocked at first, but then his heart swelled. They had only known each other for a month, but it felt like they had been family forever. They were steadily becoming best friends, and Naruto finally felt them filling the void in his heart that Sasuke had left, along with a hole he didn't know he had. Sure, Hinata loved him and would always be by his side, but they were his family, and they were bound by blood. Rokuro, anticipating what he was thinking, smiled softly at him. Hey, don't forget about little Hina either, Naruto, he quipped. She's been by your side forever, whether you noticed it or not, and she's as much a family as I am. That promise extends to her too. Naruto felt a slight guilt at this, looking at the petite girl in his arms. She had been by his side no matter what, and he resolved to always be there for her, even if it killed him. Thanks, Rokuro. Just thanks. Naruto's words failed him, the intensity of his emotions overwhelming him. Rokuro just smiled before frowning slightly. You're not going to propose marriage now, are you? He asked seriously. Naruto stared at him for a moment before bursting into laughter. Rokuro also started laughing, and the two of them nearly dropped their respective burdens. This only caused them to laugh harder, and they continued laughing as they slowly made their way back to the Leaf Village. 0000, the sun had just set when Naruto and Rokuro stumbled through the village gates, each one of them exhausted. Waiting for them was a small but important welcoming committee. Tsunade, Hayashi, Niji, and several AMBU, along with a medical team. Hinata, Hayashi, and Niji dashed forward, completely abandoning their normally stoic demeanor in their concern for the heiress. Naruto was nearly knocked down as the two of them yanked her from his arms, setting her down gently on the ground. They looked her over, and both let out a sigh of relief at her lack on injuries. Well, you're turning out to quite an ass at Rokuro, Tsunade said, a hint of amusement in her voice. Rokuro handed his two burdens to the AMBU, who slapped chakra restraining handcuffs on the two, before handing Tsunejo over to the medical team. Thank you, Lady Tsunade. Rokuro bowed, smiling at the praise. However, Naruto deserves most of the credit. After all, he did save Hinata in the first place. I see. Swan mused for a moment, before stepping up the exhausted blonde ninja. She looked Naruto up and down for a moment, before smacking him on the top of his head. You little idiot. Why would you go after Hinata by yourself? I swear, one of these days you're going to get yourself killed. She ranted, while Naruto simply held his head between his hands. Ow! He cried. Grandma, why do you always have to hit me? The first thing you do when I see you in a month is whack me over the head. Naruto asked, a hint of anger in his voice. He gulped and shuffled backwards when Tsunade cracked her knuckles, terror in his wide eyes. Tsunade surprised him, however, reaching down and pulling him into a rough hug. I'm glad you're all right, Naruto, she whispered, tears springing to her eyes. The last thing she had seen before losing consciousness was Naruto facing off against pain. She was afraid that he had died protecting the village, and the thought of losing him along with Jiraiya was almost too much to bear. The little knucklehead had become almost like a son to her, and she couldn't bear the thought of losing him. Wah dash, Naruto said in surprise. He pulled back from the embrace, putting his hands on Tsunade's shoulders. Grandma, what's wrong? Tsunade wiped away the tears, taking a moment to compose herself. Naruto, don't ever do something so stupid and reckless like what you did with Pain again, understand? She scolded. Realization slowly dawned on Naruto's face, and a smile broke out. Okay, Granny. I promise not to do anything stupid or reckless again, he said, then ruined the effect by adding, at least for a few days. Tsunade sighed, hitting him over the head once again. But inside she was smiling at his words. She knew that despite his promise, he would still go rushing off at the first opportunity. He was Naruto, of course. Ahem. Hayashi coughed. I don't mean to interrupt, but I would like to discuss what will be happening to the men who tried to kidnap my daughter. He had waited patiently for a moment to interject, after handing over Hinata to the medical team and giving Niji strict instructions not to leave her side. Of course, Lord Hayashi, Tsunade said. For starters, the younger man had been placed into the custody of the Ambu, while the older man shall be watched as he recovers. Once both men are in good health, their trial can begin. Very well. Hayashi bowed his head slightly. I believe I can be of help with their identities. Their names are Shirawaka and Sanjo Minamoto, and they are the heir and current head of the Minamoto clan. I believe this was a ploy to get my daughter to agree to marry Shirawaka. What? Naruto shouted. Why the hell would they do that? Shirawaka has been eyeing my daughter for nearly 2 years now. Hayashi continued, ignoring Naruto's outburst. Their clan has made several arranged marriage proposals, but I have refused each one. My daughter was adamant that she did not want to marry Shirawaka, although some of the elders thought it was a good idea. The Minamoto are very wealthy and powerful, and a union between our clans would make them the most powerful clan in the Land of Fire. I get it, Rokuro interjected. They must have done something to Hinata to make her believe that Naruto was dead, based on her actions before passing out. This way, nothing would prevent her from moving on. Naruto, he turned to his younger cousin. You should be there when she wakes up. You should be the first thing she sees. Naruto, still somewhat angry at Hayashi's explanation, began to shuffle after the medical team. However, before he made it more than 10 feet, he collapsed. Naruto, Tsunade and Rokuro shouted, moving to his side. Is he okay? Rokuro asked frantically. Yes, he's fine, Tsunade said after several moments. He's just exhausted, and his chakra is very low. I'll take him to the hospital, just in case. Rokuro calmed quickly before insisting that he accompany her. All right then, let's go. The two set out for the hospital, before Hayashi called after them. Please take care of my daughter and her boyfriend, he asked, his harsh voice having a soft tone to it. Tsunade simply nodded before continuing. Rokuro stopped and turned around, flashing Hayashi a grin and a thumbs up. This was a promise. No matter what, he would look after the two. Hayashi recognized the significance of the gesture and bowed deeply. Rokuro returned the bow before pivoting on his heel and running after the Hokage. Hayashi straightened, watching him go. Recent events told him that Naruto was indeed a good choice for his daughter, albeit a strange one. Even the cold Hyuga's heart warmed at the love they seemed to share, and he cracked a rare smile. Naruto, who had once been reviled and scorned by the village, was now a hero and candidate for the 6th Hokage. None of these things mattered to Hayashi, as he only cared that his daughter was loved and loved the man she chose in return. But it would certainly help justify the relationship to the clan elders. And that wraps up our deep dive into the fascinating what-if scenario where Naruto realizes Hinata's feelings early on. We've journeyed through an alternate timeline filled with newfound emotions, stronger bonds, and surprising twists. Imagine how different their adventures would be, the challenges they'd face, and the growth they'd experience together. It's a beautiful thought that reminds us of the power of understanding and the impact of realizing what's right in front of us. Thank you for joining us on this imaginative exploration. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Anime T23 for more intriguing anime scenarios and discussions. Let us know in the comments what other what-if scenarios you'd like us to explore next. Until then, stay curious and keep dreaming.